Chapter 861, Profound Punishment, II, Western Riverbank. The river water rolled past, and the formation beneath his feet glowed brightly, preventing the spirit wind in the sky from crossing the riverbank. The demonic smoke moving south had no choice but to settle here, forcing a battle on the riverbank. Li Zijai lifted his rainbow light, dispersing the incoming spell art. He glanced downward. The surging devil cultivators were being held off by the formation. Most were blocked, but quite a few were searching for gaps, trying to slip around the edges of the formation. The Azure Pond Sex formation hadn't originally been designed to trap devil cultivators. It had been a strategic move between Purple Mansion Realm cultivators, a defensive measure rather than a complete blockade. After all, in their eyes, it was just a game of moves and countermoves between Purple Mansion Realm cultivators. But the situation had changed dramatically. The devil cultivators had surged toward them as one. The formation was no longer enough, even though it left them trapped outside. Most of the devil cultivators coveted the treasures inside, and emboldened by their numbers, hurled spell arts at the formation rather than trying to bypass it. Still, quite a few devil cultivators found other ways to slip through the gaps between formations. These were mostly Qi cultivation and embryonic breathing realms cultivators, and Li Zijai paid them little mind. He was fighting four at once, blocking any Foundation Establishment realm cultivators from attempting to leap over, while still keeping an eye on the situation below. Zushi's light rippled in his hand as he slashed away a flying Dharma artifact. Another figure landed before him, riding the wind, holding a large hammer in each hand, looking exceptionally fierce. Now it's no longer me blocking them. It's these devil cultivators, greedy for the treasures and techniques I carry, who have surrounded me themselves. A thought flickered through Li Zijai's mind. The golden cloud transformed into a golden heavenly glow that leaped a few times in the air. He flicked his sleeve of heavenly glow, revealing his form and leaping out of the encirclement. Though he was now fighting 5 opponents at once and it was growing harder, he remained calm. As a disciple of a major sect, he was not someone these devil cultivators could easily match. His heavenly glow was adept at maneuvering escape spells, and if the fight became truly desperate, Li Zijai could simply ride his escape light to leave unharmed. It was Li Ziming who, using his radiant pass, was holding down 4 devil cultivators, but was already showing signs of strength. Li Zijai, far more experienced in combat, frowned as he watched and thought, he doesn't know any advanced escape spells, and this footwork is all part of his immortal Foundation manifestation. If he gets injured, it won't be a small matter. If he can't hold out, it'll lead to big trouble. As this thought crossed his mind, the female cultivator practicing wood virtue in front of him had already drawn another Dharma sword and thrust forward. But Li Zijai also knew swordsmanship, and this woman's sword art was truly not very skilled. He flicked his fingers and the Dharma sword fell into his hand. He twisted his wrist to throw it away, and even managed to snatch away another devil cultivator's spell art at the same time. The female cultivator, both angry and afraid, quickly backed up a few steps and reached for her storage pouch at her waist, only to find she had only an embryonic breathing realm sword left. Her face fell in embarrassment as she muttered, "Such a devil. Only knows how to sneak around with those underhanded spell arts." She was still afraid of Li Zijai and dared not raise her voice. She muttered to herself but stopped halfway. Li Zijai paid her no mind and took a moment to glance around. This woman's Dharma light was actually clear and pure, so she didn't seem like a devil cultivator. Li Zijai looked at the other 2 beside her. Though there were some blemishes, they were lighter than those of ordinary Jiangnan cultivators. Only the last 2 radiated bloodlight, which was a clear sign they were up to no good. A thought stirred in his heart. Both the North and South refer to them as devil cultivators, but it's never that clear. As long as they're Purple Mansion or Golden Core Realms cultivators, whether they're devil cultivators or not, or to what degree, all depends on their own cultivation. Though these thoughts filled his mind, the spell art in his hands was utterly merciless. He made no distinction based on the purity or impurity of their mana, striking every blow to kill. These cultivators were at most mid-stage Foundation Establishment realm, and his onslaught immediately forced them onto the defensive. At the other end, Li Ziming's forehead was dotted with sweat as he fully activated the Radiant Origin Pass. A dazzling stream of light burst from it, the scorching radiance within burning the air into a bright and still state. It trapped the 4 devil cultivators' Dharma artifacts inside and forcibly suppressed them. While he still had to defend against incoming spell arts, he finally found a brief moment to glance at his surroundings, and his heart sank. There are even more devil cultivators on Brother Zijai's side than here, and more demonic smoke is still coming. How could we possibly hold this? Brother Zijai and I are both pretty strong among Foundation establishment realm cultivators, yet we're already under heavy pressure. How could the other places fare any better? He understood that the riverbank would inevitably be breached, but he had essentially pinned himself by suppressing these four. How could he possibly get away easily when the formation broke? He grew anxious. Li Ziming waited a moment, then suddenly saw streaks of purple lightning light up in the east, drawing closer and closer with every moment. The jade token at his waist grew warm. Instantly overjoyed, he activated his immortal foundation, and the radiant light shone even more brilliantly, holding the four devil cultivators down tightly. Boom! After counting a few breaths, he finally saw the purple lightning tear through the sky. A woman with black hair flowing held a spear in one hand. 6 silver sixfold profound thunder punishment tokens swirled and gleamed around her. The pale green feathered robe she wore glowed softly with purple light in the air. Rain was still falling from the sky. When the gray-black raindrops neared her, they were captured by the power of primal magnetism, transforming into small round gray beads that quietly rotated around her. Her beautiful, misty purple eyes turned to look, and her voice was sweet. When the sun reaches its apex, 6 thunders are born. The silvery lightning reflected in Li Ziming's eyes, flashing as it descended from the sky. Amid the shocked expressions of the surrounding devil cultivators, Li Ziming finally let out a sigh of relief, shouting, "Ant." Chapter 862, The Fall of Great Ning Palace. Great Ning Palace. The sky over Great Ning Palace was gloomy and gray. The once bright and beautiful lake had completely dried up, the ground had cracked, and the occasional clouds drifting overhead quickly dissipated. The cliff at the very center had already collapsed, filling more than half of the dry lake bed. Countless palace halls and towers had toppled and collapsed, littering the ground with wreckage. It was a scene of desolation. Trouble had broken out in Anhui Heaven, and a host of Purple Mansion realm cultivators had started to battle. They had even started fighting inside Great Ning Palace itself, causing the entire area to quake. In less than 15 minutes, the place had been reduced to ruins. If not for the continuous efforts to maintain it, it could very well have been shattered into dust. Now, with all the Mahas and Purple Mansion realm cultivators inside, some unknown Purple Mansion realm cultivator had apparently left a hidden trap that destroyed the sky-piercing pillar of light. It had been smashed to pieces after everyone had entered, leaving Great Ning Palace abandoned and disregarded, shrouded in darkness. Silence lay heavy over the area as Xuanfeng stepped down from the palace ruins. The ground was covered in rubble. He pressed one hand on a stone stair several feet wide, pulled it loose, and casually tossed it aside, where it landed with a heavy rumble. Xuanfeng had been trapped here for some time, but he hadn't been idle. After all, there might be quite a few spirit items hidden in the ruins of the collapsed palaces that he could put to use. He retrieved a bright silver lamp from the debris, brushed away the dust, and saw large words engraved on its base, Gayoping Zai family. This lamp was only at the Qi cultivation realm. Xuanfeng examined it carefully. The craftsmanship was elegant and refined. Just then, he heard Si Yuanli's voice from the side. When the Wei state fell, many cultivators fled south and reached the riverbank. At that time, most of the land south of the Great River was under Chu's control. The king of Chu ordered the cultivators to stay north of the river, forbidding them to cross south. The Sima, Su, Zai, Zio, and other families gathered in Jiangbei and held secret talks for several days. Led by the Li and Jiang families on both sides of the Jia River, they founded the Ning state, upheld the legacy of Wei, and made the Wanglin Upper sect the leading immortal sect. The collapsed palace's roof ridge jutted high into the Si Yuanli sat cross-legged on top of it, resting his chin on one hand, looking rather leisurely as he continued. Sect rivalry wasn't so fierce at that time. All cultivators did their best for the country. Ning state made the king of Chu extremely wary, and he always viewed the later arriving families with suspicion. After listening for a while, Xuanfeng glanced at the glowing signature of Gayoping Zai family on the lamp base in his hand and said softly, "I heard the founder of the Chunyi Dao came from the Zai family. It was indeed the Gayoping Zai family." Si Yuanli replied, "That person only ever listened in at Changming Hall, so strictly speaking, it was only half of a proper Dao lineage, but the more one lacked something, the more they cared about it. I heard that person claimed allegiance to the Green Pine Temple Dao lineage for life." The Chunyi Dao was the same way, always obsessing over such things. Xuanfeng nodded slightly. Si Yuanli paused for a moment, then spoke softly, "Fellow Taoist, you guessed right. My Si family originally bore the surname Sima." We were a powerful family from the north, with Purple Mansion realm cultivators as far back as the Zhou dynasty. When Wei fell, we fled south all the way and finally settled in Jiangnan. So that's your ancestral origin, Li Xuanfeng noted. Yuan sighed softly. The noble lineages from north and south have lasted to this day. When you look around, whose ancestors weren't princes, marquises, or generals, it's better not to mention it. Once you do, all you can say is that their descendants are unworthy of their name. Li Xuanfeng fell silent for a moment. At least his own family was acknowledged as Wei's Li. Then he saw Yuan pause for a moment and speak softly. My ancestor once guarded the riverbank for the Wei state, and that's how this scroll of the Huey River map came to be. It was drawn by the true monarch Shang Yao Qi Yan of the time. It's a first-class ancient Purple Mansion realm spirit artifact. Li Xuanfeng was slightly stunned and asked softly, an ancient spirit artifact. It looks like it's for defense and suppression. How does it compare to the Xinyu pristine marsh seal? Well, Yuan considered for a while, then shook his head as he replied, it can't really be compared. Besides, different spirit artifacts perform differently in different hands. In any case, both spirit artifacts are extremely formidable. Li Xuanfeng suddenly recalled the binding ring and cloud sunder that Yu Muxian had used in the past. Since Yuan seemed open to conversation, he casually asked, how does it compare to binding ring and cloud sunder? Ha 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 ha. Yuan let out a hearty laugh, raising his eyebrows with disdain, and answered, fellow Taoist, you must be joking. Binding ring and cloud sunder are imitations made by Yuanwu. Binding ring is a copy of the Yue cultivating sect's Bu Yue, while cloud sunder is a copy of Xiu Qi Temple's Tianziu. They're already somewhat inferior to ordinary spirit artifacts. How could you compare them to an ancient spirit artifact? He hesitated for a couple of seconds, as if searching for a suitable analogy. Then he pulled out an ordinary Dharma sword from his storage pouch and pointed at it. This thing also came from Yuanwu Peak. It's said to be at the Foundation Establishment realm, but anyone can tell it was just pieced together by countless Qi cultivation realm refinements over time. It barely meets the Foundation Establishment realm, has the appearance and some qualities of Foundation Establishment realm, but no real wonders. The orthodox immortal sect disciples would never use this kind of Dharma sword. Li Xuanfeng examined it carefully, found it just as Yuan had described, and nodded. Yuan chuckled and said, fellow Taoist, comparing this thing to Fuchin Peak's water wall pearl is about the same as comparing those imitations to an ancient spirit artifact. The words flashed through Li Xuanfeng's mind like lightning, and he keenly caught a certain phrase, binding ring duaz, a copy of the Yue cultivating sect's Bu Yue. When Yu Muxian had brought out binding ring, Tang Shedu had mocked it endlessly, infuriating Xiao Yongling so much that even his spiritual qi changed color. Li Xuanfeng remembered that incident well. He vaguely recalled that the Xiao family's ancestor, Xiao Xianyu, who was once hailed as a golden core seedling, had been slain by a Dharma artifact resembling the binding ring. Whether Tang Yuanwu actually had that level of strength at the time is another question. And the binding ring hadn't even been completed yet. That means it must have been that spirit artifact, Bu Yue. Xiao Xianyu was killed by the Yue cultivating sect. Was it Shangyuan, or who else? Li Xuanfeng wasn't curious without reason. Xiao Shooting's actions were difficult to understand, and there was no way to infer his position. If he could get information about Xiao Xianyu, he might be able to roughly deduce Xiao Shooting's stance, giving himself a basis to judge the situation in the future. These direct descendants already have resources and innate abilities that are 100 times greater than ordinary people, and most of their temperaments aren't far off either. They monopolize the situations and relationships, leaving ordinary people clueless and at their mercy. Li Xuanfeng thought deeply. Yuan seemed also touched by the Huey River map. The two of them fell silent, and the sky overhead had turned a pale blue. A bright glow faintly shone through, illuminating them as if they were at the bottom of a lake. After losing Taoist Master Qiushui's divine abilities and suffering at the hands of all those Purple Mansion realm cultivators, Great Ning Palace finally couldn't hold on. Yuan exhaled and laughed. Just wait a little longer, and we can finally leave this wretched place. Chapter 863, The Fall of Great Ning Palace, II. Boom. Purple lightning roiled in the sky with a terrifying momentum. The lightning around Li Qinghang's entire body had turned bright purple. Each feather on her feathered robe was glowing brightly. She had slaughtered her way here without regard for cost or consumption, breaking several sieges at different crossings. Even though she had been injured, she'd also saved a lot of time. She immediately activated the vast Sky Fierce Sparrow inside her body. Her internal mana surged and her thunder pool roared with waves of lightning. Her eyes shone with a misty purple hue, and her silver-white spear shone as it pointed forward. Silver lightning burst forth from the 6 tokens in her palm, descending with a thunderous crash. Of the 4 northern cultivators beside Li Ziming, 3 were Purple Mansion and Golden Core Dao's cultivators that had ingested blood chi. The last one was a true devil cultivator from the diverse mansion Unified Furnace. The silver lightning exploded, and they all let out pained howls. The 3 blood chi-infused Purple Mansion and Golden Core Dao's cultivators were better off as they were only paralyzed. However, the last devil cultivator was like a man thrown into boiling oil. His robes burst apart, and his skin bubbled with countless blisters. His blood vessels burst, and thick black smoke billowed forth. His eyes burst from their sockets like 2 rotten fruits, exploding midair with a pop. The blood evaporated in an instant, and his body melted like wax, revealing pale white bones at the elbows. Profound thunder. Li Ziming was shocked as he watched. This devil cultivator had been the most restrained in his previous battle with Li Ziming. He was often drenched in sweat under his radiant light and unable to move freely. Yet, thunder truly was the bane of devils. And among all lightning, profound thunder was supreme. He naturally couldn't compare. Li Qingheng had seen countless devil cultivators on her way. Her almond-shaped eyes glinted as she immediately understood that this one's entire body had almost certainly been refined through demonic rituals, usually making him indestructible. But he was as fragile as tofu against profound thunder, breaking apart in just 2 strikes. She rode the lightning closer, and the purple spear shadow pierced into the demonic smoke, seizing the moment when the silver lightning was still reverberating in the air. Purple light and sparrow shadows flew in, but instead of striking the devil cultivator whose body was already melting, she turned and aimed at a figure in midair. Li Qingheng had rescued several crossings already, and had long since understood the mindset of the attackers. She wasn't in a rush to kill the heavily wounded devil cultivator. Letting him go would actually attract many cultivators to hunt him down and relieve pressure on the Grand Formation. As she calculated, the cultivators themselves were miserable. Their internal mana was still trembling, yet they were being forced to use their Dharma artifacts to defend. Their hearts quaked. This southern devil sect even has a Dao lineage of thunder arts. Why are they working with the devil sect? Li Ziming formed a spell seal and saw a round shield fly toward him in the air, humming and shimmering faintly. But its quality was truly mediocre. It had just reached him when the purple and white spear was already there. Clang! Purple lightning exploded on the round shield. The Dharma artifact was struck so hard it staggered to a stop and almost flew backward. It started to give off black smoke from the sheer heat of the collision, but Li Qingheng's spear did not pause. It thrust forward again. Just then a bright radiance descended, and the familiar suppressive force returned. The bright light atop the sky flickered, and a magnificent white barrier rose once again. Battling such a fierce, thunder-wielding cultivator was already nerve-wracking and left no room for distraction. The renewed suppression caused merely a half-beat of delay in the northern cultivator, but that was enough. His eyes were filled with the sight of lightning striking down on him. Puff! Li Qingheng was battle-hardened and experienced in spell combat. Her spear flashed, and the Dharma robe on his body, as fragile as a layer of thick hide, shattered with a crack. Her spear had already pierced his chest, spraying blood. At that moment, the Dharma artifacts of the remaining devil cultivators finally arrived one after another, but they were all subdued by the radiant origin pass. The man with the spear through his chest turned deathly pale, vomiting blood as he stumbled backward, desperately suppressing the lightning within him. Li Qingheng withdrew her spear and activated the vast sky-fierce sparrow within her, purple lightning crackling under her boots. She pointed her spear diagonally, eyes like lightning, and coldly shouted, "Begone." Silver lightning spread with her words, forcing them back several steps. Li Ziming loosened the radiant origin pass's suppressive force at just the right moment. 3 Dharma artifacts flew out in a hurry, and the 3 men, as if granted amnesty, quickly retreated. As for the devil cultivator whose body had melted earlier, he dared not linger any longer. He had long since transformed into a black mist and fled several kilometers away. He was also being chased by other streams of demonic light and continued fleeing northward at a frantic pace. Li Qingheng stepped forward with her spear. A muffled thunder rang out, and purple lightning landed beside Li Zijai. When she looked back, the surrounding cultivators felt a chill of fear and retreated in unison. Li Zijai had held his own against 5 opponents, which was a testament to his mastery of spell arts. He took the opportunity to rest and replenish his energy. But when he saw Li Qinghang return alone, his expression turned slightly somber. Li Qinghang's purple lightning shielded him, the profound punishment tokens whirled around her, the Duruo spear gleamed silver, and the cyan sparrow plume shone brilliantly. Thunder itself was already fearsome, but with her late foundation establishment realm cultivation strengthened by the vast sky fierce sparrow, she shone even more brightly, making everyone's expressions change in shock. Lightning cultivator. The female cultivator of the wood virtue shuddered slightly, her eyes filled with disbelief. 5 of them had surrounded and attacked him for so long, yet they had gained nothing. They lingered unwillingly until Li Qinghang's 6-fold profound thunder punishment tokens lit up, at which point they all fled in a rush. Li Qinghang exhaled lightly and looked into the distance, where streaks of escape light continued to converge rapidly. More and more brilliant streams of light were flowing together. Li Zijai moved closer to her and said softly, "Aunt, I'm afraid we can't hold anymore." The situation was becoming increasingly clear. The Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators in the sky had some reservations and weren't fully engaged. Many of them were still fighting among themselves. Yet, the number of embryonic breathing and Qi Cultivation Realm cultivators flooding in was growing rapidly. What's more, those who had arrived so far were just rogue cultivators from the north without any background. The ones with real strength were still observing from the sidelines, ready to pounce at any moment. The Azure Pawn Sex formation here isn't exactly impressive. Even if these Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators don't strike, the Southbound Devil cultivators can each throw a spell art and still tear this grand formation apart. Once the formation beneath their feet was broken, a horde of cultivators would swarm them. There would be no point in holding this place any longer. Li Qinghang nodded silently and said softly, "I've received some news. I'll do my best to hold on for a little longer. Maybe there's still a chance." She turned to the north. The purple light in her almond eyes dimmed, but the bright purple lightning on her robe still danced, intimidating the demons in the sky. A patch of black cloud gradually emerged from the demonic smoke and slowly approached them. It didn't carry an overwhelmingly demonic aura. Instead, it exuded a peculiar and profound feeling. Li Ziming frowned slightly as his immortal foundation burst into the air, transforming into a massive radiant pass that glowed with a searing light. It illuminated a man in crisp, practical black robes. His face was slightly pale, and he stood with his hands behind his back. He had sharp eyebrows and 2 calm gray eyes. He slowly rode on 2 black clouds and held a white talisman in his hand as he stopped unhurriedly in front of them. Fellow Taoist, we meet again. Chapter 864, The Fall of Great Ning Palace, III. Yu Jiang. Li Qinghang had just seen him earlier, when she had been dueling Guo Hongjian. He was a cultivator from the southern sea whose aura was hard to gauge and carried an air of deep mystery. He simply stood there, staring at Li Qinghang's dazzling purple lightning-covered figure. His expression was naturally full of admiration, as if he were waiting for something rather than attacking. Li Qinghang knew this person was formidable and held her spear without striking. After 2 seconds, she saw a streak of blue-black light shoot skyward from Changshui Tomb in the north, rapidly spreading and dyeing half the sky blue-black. Boom! A thunderous roar erupted, as if something had fallen from the distant mountains, sending tremors through the earth. A hazy purple-black energy surged skyward. The demonic smoke in the north all paused and twisted in chaotic confusion. Some turned back north, some halted to fight among themselves, and a few continued south, becoming increasingly disordered. She glanced worriedly, but the young man before her seemed to have been waiting for this moment to arrive, and finally spoke. "Taoist Li, the great Ning Palace has fallen. Changshui Tomb is filled with all sorts of relics, and the devil cultivators will surely rush to search for them, so the offensive will slow down for a while. I came here especially for this chance, and I ask for your guidance." His clear voice slowly echoed in the... Li Qinghang frowned slightly at the unexpected words and softly replied, "Li Qinghang greets you, Taoist friend, but there is a great calamity between the north and south at the moment. I fear it is not appropriate for a duel right now. Please wait until this time has passed. If I survive, you may seek me out then." Yu Jiang looked at her seriously and replied, "I have some grudges with the Azure Pawn sect, and since you blocked the devil cultivators, I'm not too pleased." Li Qinghang narrowed her eyes slightly. His words were contradictory, but she immediately became alert, of course, since the southern advance of the devil cultivators was the will of several Purple Mansion realm cultivators. I greatly reduced the pressure on the defense lines by blocking them alone. As time passes, I might offend all the Purple Mansion realm cultivators. She exhaled slightly. She started to regard the person in front of her as a cultivator sent by one of the Purple Mansion realm cultivators to block her. On one hand, she was relieved he hadn't come a moment earlier, and on the other, she drew her spear, purple lightning rippling, and softly said, "Li Qinghang of Qingdu." "Yu Jiang of the Southern Sea," replied the man. The young man nodded lightly, and suddenly a clap of thunder exploded by his ear. Li Qinghang's figure vanished from where she stood. She rode a surge of purple lightning, speeding toward him with six-fold profound thunder punishment tokens spinning in her hand and shining with silver-white lightning. When Yang reaches its peak, it gives birth to 6 thunders. Boom. Before her spear could reach him, a streak of silver-white lightning shot forth, but Yu Jiang glanced at the 6-fold profound thunder punishment tokens and formed a seal with his hand. A glistening gold rune appeared in his palm. He said softly, "Thunder falls in dewy, resting in the sea of clouds." In an instant, a vast ocean appeared in the air, and a sparkling golden light rose from it. The silver-white lightning fell into it and disappeared like being drawn into a bottomless vortex. The vast ocean swirled once, then condensed into a single golden talisman that fell into Yu Jiang's hand. Li Qinghang's profound thunder had been dispelled. However, she already knew this person was formidable and was not surprised. But as the Duruo spear carried a purple shadow and thrust forward, Yu Jiang actually raised his hand to slap at her spear. Li Qinghang's silver spear seemed to land on something soft, bending slightly and brushing past him. The black-robed youth casually deflected a surge of purple lightning with a wave of his hand. Clang. Li Qinghang pulled her spear back, reversed it, and raised the 6-fold profound thunder punishment tokens in front of her to guard against attacks. She glanced quickly and saw that the tip of the Duruo spear had indeed bent slightly, but it was slowly straightening out like a living thing. This is the shamanic talisman Dao technique. She now had a rough measure of her opponent's strength, while Yu Jiang remained outwardly calm. Still, the hand holding the golden talisman trembled slightly, dissipating a bit of silver lightning. Clearly, he wasn't as nonchalant as he appeared. Li Qinghang drew her spear back, but Yu Jiang raised his sleeve and lightly flicked it, releasing a few specks of black light that spun in midair, transforming into flowing talismans that quietly circled him once before falling into his eyes. His pupils suddenly widened, staring intently. Li Qinghang felt as if thunder had exploded in her mind, seeing only darkness as drops of fresh blood dripped, and everything before her became unclear. What a formidable spell art. Li Qinghang's vision dimmed, giving Yu Jiang a chance to form another spell seal. His gaze fell on the Duruo spear in her hand, and he calculated silently. That spear is not ordinary. Perhaps because of its profound thunder nature, it naturally restrains shape-shifting demons and evildoers. It was able to straighten itself out almost immediately after receiving my palm strike. He placed one hand under his elbow, extended 2 fingers on the other hand, and pointed them at the Duruo spear in Li Qinghang's hand. Raising his head slightly, he intoned, "Rise, shamanic transformation, turn the weapon into demonkind." Li Qinghang's eyes briefly darkened, but a clear light surged from her dantian, sweeping away the illusions of the shamanic talisman Dao in her mind. Once she regained her clarity, she summoned her lightning, and suddenly felt something slimy in her hand. The Duruo spear in her hand had turned into a white python with fine scales, opening its mouth in confusion as it tried to wriggle free. Li Qinghang gripped it tightly, realizing she had fallen into someone else's spell rhythm. Command. She decisively spat out a profound thunder, and a spot of light shot from between her lips and teeth. Yu Jiang raised an eyebrow, stepped back half a step, and the air exploded with a purple thunder cascade that came crashing down. He had no choice but to pause his spell art to defend himself. Li Qinghang seized the opportunity, pouring her vast lightning energy into her spear and completely purging the shamanic talisman Dao art from it. The Duruo spear instantly regained its original form, its silver light flashing as it merged into the lightning cascade. Yu Jiang struggled to move in the thunder cascade, but managed to raise his hands, talismans glowing as he pressed both palms against the spear, trying to deflect it. Li Qinghang was no longer playing around. Her eyes turned a bright purple-white, and terrifying lightning coursed through her body, instantly tearing his spell art apart as she thrust straight at him. Good. Yu Jiang had no choice but to avoid her strike. He gently twirled his robe, letting it be shredded in the lightning. His figure reappeared several feet away, and he spat out a mouthful of purple lightning. Both of them stopped fighting and looked north, only to see billowing demonic smoke roaring as several magnificently dressed, awe-inspiring devil cultivators stood among the clouds, slowly pressing down from the horizon. Clang, but neither of them looked at the demonic smoke in front of them. Instead, they gazed farther north, where a point of golden light was rushing through the air with fierce, overbearing astral chi, ruthlessly tearing through the demonic smoke and rapidly approaching. Thunder Art split the sky, wielding the spear like a wandering dragon. Chapter 865, Li Qinghong Side Story I. This side story is a speculative future based on the heaven-expanding Profound Talisman, beginning with the Northern-Southern conflict. Profound Thunder. Silver-white mist drifted amidst the darkness as long cyan-white plumes fluttered lightly. A bluish-purple glow streamed down from the white robe of a young woman and scattered along the hem of her skirt into the dark clouds. She looked no more than 17 or 18 years old, with a delicate nose and misty purple eyes. Purple and white lightning coiled around her, illuminating a breathtaking beauty. Long, profound heavenly lightning talisman is already 70% spent. The summoned thunder is becoming even more powerful. Li Qinghong had just slain Zai Zikang and watched the young man collapse at her feet, her expression somewhat complex. The entire formation was channeling the lightning from the long, profound heavenly lightning talisman into her, and her footwork technique-infused body was nearly coalescing into lightning, naturally restoring her appearance to that of a 17 or 18-year-old. The profound thunder was vast, yet it was not black but rather silver-white. Zai Zikang had mentioned that the profound thunder was not truly profound colored thunder. In ancient times, it had been classified among the three thunders and was called divine thunder. Later, immortal Lord Huang Xuan had attained enlightenment in the Northern Sea, becoming the source of all thunder arts that wielded punishment and slaughter. The closer one was to the Northern Sea, the more terrifying tribulation lightning became. The purple-gold devil Dao then migrated southward, and from that point on, it was no longer called divine thunder, but rather, using the northern symbol profound to represent it, became known as profound thunder. Hence its silver-white hue. Mist-like silver-white lightning drifted through the air. Li Qinghong climbed the white steps one by one. Figures either stood or knelt in the main hall below, some on the verge of death, while others slowly transformed into lightning. A few cultivators knelt sporadically, while thunderous voices roared furiously in the grand hall above. Zhang Yunyu. Zhang Yunyu, each time that voice echoed in the air, countless silver-white lightning bolts lit up the endless darkness above like a spiderweb, flashing briefly and leaving behind a chorus of rumbles. Zhang Yunyu. Li Qinghong took another step forward on the steps before the grand hall. It was as if time that had been frozen began to flow again. The silver-white lightning cascaded back down the steps, and the voice roared once more, now tinged with a cold hatred. Zhang Yunyu, why did Taiyu die? The voice lingered for a moment, then left a profound silence. No reply came from the other side, but a soft shower of golden rain fell through the cracks in the tightly closed hall doors, dotting her face like tiny stars. Dazzling lightning poured down the steps again, illuminating the carvings on the pillars and stairs in a brilliant silver-white that cast shifting light on her face. The voice sounded again, cold and grim. Metal says transformation. Metal says transformation. And what about you, Zhang Yunyu? Did you not lend a helping hand with the fall of Great Liang and Taiyu's rise to fruition attainment? These words rolled forth like waves, then turned into a golden rain as they left the hall, fluttering toward her face. A crisp, pleasing sound rang in her ears like tiny bells as the cyan-white plumes on her clothes gave off a delicate metallic clink. Chaotic illusions arose before her eyes. There were crowds of people, rivers of blood, chariots thundering across the plains, broken swords and swirling dust. Zhang Yunyu, Li Qinghong paused slightly as an ethereal yet calm and clear voice drifted in. Taoist friend, how much of the profound thunder Tao lineage remains? Moreover, how much strength do you truly have as a mere residual position of the hearing chime seat? Why meddle here? Zhang Yunyu. The voice cracked like muffled thunder, echoing in the air, deep and resonant. You old thing. Countless silver-white talismans rose from the top to the bottom of the white steps. Silver-white lightning surged upward, and thick, dense thunderclouds gathered above Li Qinghong's head. Profound lightning appeared on her robe, and the long, profound heavenly lightning talisman transformed into a point of purple light that flickered like a star above her head, sometimes near and sometimes far. Li Qinghong's vision gradually blurred. Boom. A bolt of lightning flashed by, and the long, profound heavenly lightning talisman slowly activated, enveloping her in the heart-questioning spell. Li Qinghong faintly heard a deep, cold voice. Dongfeng Weiming also wants to seize the profound thunder. You two old things have clearly colluded. Good. Very good. The sunlight was fragmented, resting on the yellow-green treetops of autumn, and the light before her eyes was sliced into several segments by drifting dust, streaming down like liquid gold and landing on the boy's profile. His gray pupils slowly shrank in the sunlight, reflecting Li Qinghong's youthful face. Her gaze traveled down his cheek and paused at his lips, watching them part and close, his lips red and teeth white. Sister. Li Qingheng realized that her arm was still tender, with bead-like sweat dripping down its curve. Her arm was not overly pale, but the color of youth made it uniquely and strikingly beautiful. Ding-dang. A silver ring on the wooden spear in her hand spun, jingling as the spear tip danced among the osmanthus flowers on the treetops. Bright yellow blossoms were lifted by the spear tip and fell onto her wrist. Ding-dang, ding-dang. The crisp sound rose and fell, and she remembered this was the training method she had practiced when she was 10. She was spinning the silver ring to poke at the osmanthus flowers, knocking down just one blossom without letting a leaf fall or a flower shatter. At that time, Li Qingheng already had some cultivation and could do it easily, so she deliberately caught the flower on her wrist, partly because it looked nice, and partly because it was more challenging. The boy before her sat quietly in the sunlight, his lips still parting and closing. Li Qingheng's vision blurred as his gray eyes moved closer and farther. She wanted to look at her brother longer and couldn't help but mouth the words he was saying, sister. A purple-black light shimmered in his gray pupils, reflecting a purple thunder pool within. She faintly glimpsed lightning leaping like snakes and dragons inside. Half of his face was bathed in sunlight, and his lips trembled. This is your era. His gray pupils widened, and he stared calmly at Li Qingheng, saying, What about us, sister? Li Qingheng stared at him. Her younger brother Li Yuanian had no achievements to speak of, and had died violently as a mere mortal, his bones lost and unrecovered. His gray pupils stared at her. Li Yunyan's face was 70% like their father Li Xuanling's, and also bore a strong resemblance to their grandfather Li Tongya, with long brows and deep-set eyes. This similarity, combined with his wasted, tragic death, left Li Qingheng feeling suffocated. What about us, sister? His lips softly closed, and Li Qingheng felt a chill in her heart as the scene before her blurred, and more voices emerged. You want to forge 6 wheels and refine the will of divine powers, to slay immortals and demons, to guard the land and bring peace to the people. Good sister, I have this aspiration too. Sister, what should I do? Yuanian, thought Li Qingheng. Li Qingheng looked at his gray-black pupils as words stuck in her throat. She remembered her own youth had been too rushed. She could still comfort her brother when she had just begun cultivating, but later they hardly saw each other at all. She had to refine the 6 wheels, practice spear techniques, and continue her thunder arts cultivation, and the family's affairs grew heavier by the day. Li Qingheng did not even have enough time for herself. Later, when she saw Li Yunian again, the boy had to bow and call her eldest sister. He had become the Li family's first male who could not cultivate, despite being the legitimate grandson of the renowned Li Tongya. This stayed until Li Yunian died in the market, leaving Li Qingheng both shocked and furious. In the end, she had captured Qiu Jai and used thunder to refine him, emerging from the demonic clouds, yet her heart found no peace. What had once burned in her heart as hatred now became clearer. Li Qingheng reached out to stroke her brother's face, and everything before her suddenly faded. Yunar. Boom! A sharp crack of thunder suddenly jolted Li Qingheng out of her illusion. The lightning flowed down the white steps before her, the illusion dissipating like wind, and her gaze fell back on the scene before her. Lightning churned in the sky, as Li Qingheng watched quietly. There were various spell markings and illustrations on the walls of the Grand Hall. Unlike her family's celestial thunder, these lightning bolts mostly appeared silver-white and crawled slowly along the walls. Silver-white lightning hung from the sky like liquid, extending deep into the boundless darkness. Li Qingheng opened her eyes slightly, and the Grand Hall before her was now close at hand. The rolling silver lightning danced, and the murals on the walls shifted constantly. One moment, it was transforming into a dragon and a serpent devouring each other, the next into a person raising a sword to the sky, and another into a broken sword, dissolving into a single bead. Li Qingheng had never been accustomed to using the 6-fold profound thunder punishment tokens and had left them on Zongquan Island. The Duruo spear still shone brightly as it continued to tremble in her hand. Chapter 866, Li Qingheng's Side Story, II. The Duruo spear was a silver-white spear that was originally of the profound thunder lineage and not part of the celestial thunder. However, many celestial thunder treasures had also been refined into it during its forging. This spear had accompanied Li Qingheng through life and death. It had been tempered by her blood and spirit and had long since become one with her. She stepped onto the white steps. The rumbling in the hall had ceased, but the golden rain still splattered against her skirt, making its hem tremble slightly. Jang Yuanyu. The fruition attainment of metal virtue, and his surname is Jang. He must be that true monarch from the Golden Feather sect. The words of one at the level of true monarch carried immediate magical effects. He must have fought in this hall, leaving behind echoes that, along with various visions, still reverberated, sometimes as golden rain and sometimes as white lightning. This true monarch of the thunder lineage might have already perished, and the white lightning that marked the beginning of his fall was incredibly dense, with spiritual lightning flowing down, brushing past both sides of her. The grand hall's doors were tightly shut. There were carvings of surging waters on both sides of the door. Ferocious dragon kings loomed faintly in the stormy rain and sea, and above, immortals stood calmly with hands folded behind their backs, a command token floating before them. Below was inscribed, "Falling water, rising storm." Falling water, rising storm. Zai Ziking had once said that the master of this hall had slain the fourth son of the true hornless dragon to attain enlightenment. Now Li Qingheng understood. Why is there this spiritual aura of falling water, rising storm? Why did Dongfeng Yu fail to refine the converging water and die instead, resulting in falling water and rising storm? It fits the struggle between converging water and profound thunder. The son of the true hornless dragon died by thunder, and from then on, whenever a dragon clan's converging water line perished and water fell, thunder would inevitably rise. Li Qingheng's face brightened and darkened in turn under the silver-white lightning. All kinds of illusions gathered before her once again, and the grand hall suddenly seemed to recede into the distance, replaced by a bright moonlight. Moonlight gathered before her eyes, and the white steps of the thunderpool in front of Li Qingheng transformed into a clear, bright lake. The dark green water rippled with glints of light, and pale white moonlight cascaded down as she stood among the clouds. Before her stood a middle-aged man. His brows were long and arched, his bearing broad and composed. He wore a flowing gray robe, holding a sword and carrying another on his back, both sheathed. His calm gray eyes turned toward her, and he spoke gently. "Qingheng, that boy from the Fei family probably has some feelings for you. What do you think, grandfather?" Her heart ached, and in her ears, her own voice from her spirited youth rang out. "I have no interest in romance and do not wish to become anyone's wife or concubine." Li Qingheng realized that she had not yet faced much hardship back then. Both her elder brothers were alive, and her father and grandfather were the family's pillars. The girl's voice was still bright, echoing over the lake. "Though I am not a man, I too aspire to refine the 6 wheels and hone divine abilities, to slay immortals and demons, to guard the land and bring peace to the people. Let the red tassel of my spear move, and heroes falter and immortals bow their heads." Li Qingheng remembered those words, but had long buried them deep in her memories. She looked at Li Tongye before her, who lowered his brow slightly, paused for several breaths, then spoke a single word, "Hard." Hard. Li Tongye gave her just one word, but it carried all the decades of struggle she had faced. At the time, she had not even registered Li Tongye's answer. Now, as she recalled it, Li Qingheng's eyes finally grew moist and muttered, "Hard." Li Yongxiu had been murdered, Li Xuanfeng fell at Zhenhui Temple, and Li Tongye had slain Yu Xiaogui with his sword and perished. Later, her younger brother Li Yunian died an ignoble death. Her second brother Li Yunjiao died at Green Pine Temple. Li Yuexiang, Li Xuanfeng, Li Qingliu, Li Zijin. Li Qingheng was not one to show her emotions, but that did not mean she did not feel pain. Meeting her grandfather's gaze, which was as warm as ever, Li Qingheng's voice grew hoarse as she softly said, "Grandfather. If the great Tao lies ahead and there is a chance to attain divine abilities, yet the risk is 9 deaths out of 10, and I fear it will shake the very foundations of the clan, should I take that step or not. I also understand Ziming's thoughts. On one side is the endlessly tempting path of the Tao, on the other, the interests of our brothers in the family. How can one separate the two?" Li Tongye watched silently, as Li Qingheng's voice grew even quieter. "Grandfather, Uncle Xuanfeng took the human pill, but what could we have done? When I was young, I thought that righteousness was righteousness, that good was good and evil was evil, and that doing good was enough. But now I see that we cultivators are 100 or 1,000 times stronger than mortals. Thus, doing good is extremely difficult, yet doing evil is all too easy. Yet merit cannot offset the sin of killing. If it could be offset, then Kai Wei, who saved millions but devoured hundreds of thousands, or saved 100,000 but ate one, wouldn't he have cancelled it out completely? Thus, a single crime, a single evil, is a lifelong stain." She spoke in a low voice, "Grandfather, it seems to me that our family today is like a boat traveling through muddy water. All things are pure at the beginning, but when things get stirred, there will inevitably be traces of mud. After 100 years of navigating, stains have already appeared. I don't wish to complain about the ways of the world, but there is certainly no such thing as a perfectly pure, spotless world. in every generation, which family is without sin? Is eating people only a sin when they are in your mouth? Which family's hands are not stained with human blood? She slowly raised her head, her voice hoarse yet still pleasant to the ear. Grandfather, how is it that we are always guilty? Is there truly no path in the mortal world but sin or death? Li Tangya before her watched her quietly, one hand resting on her head. His voice was as warm and gentle as ever. Don't take it too heavily. Each generation does what it must. Boom, thunder echoed in the sky as Li Qinghong gradually came to her senses. Before her was a white stone staircase ascending into the endless void, surrounded by raging lightning. Li Qinghong's eyes gradually cleared as she stepped onto the final stair, its surface dense with patterns that glowed with a silver-white light. Purple lightning flowed from her slender hand, sliding down the white steps into the thunder pool below. Li Qinghong held her spear pointed diagonally toward the ground, her long hair fluttering in the wind like ink dissolving in the endless purple, her eyes contrasting strikingly in black and white. The thunder pool behind her kept surging. A middle-aged man knelt at its edge, his massive thunder-imbued axe shattered into a chaotic mess of fragments that danced on the ground under the pull of lightning. Black blood gushed from his lips, quickly turning into white lightning that rose into the sky. Yet he lifted his head and laughed wildly. Purple lightning primordial radiance secret technique. Ha 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 ha. His laughter aggravated his wounds, and black blood spurted again, turning white in midair. Without turning his head, he transformed into lightning and shot upward, shouting loudly, Li Qinghong, Li Qinghong. Above the thunder is the dragon. Above the thunder is the dragon. Thun PFFT. Li Qinghong turned her face slightly, the raging lightning sweeping her black hair behind her ear. Her voice was cold and pleasant, like the soft chime of a bell. I know. Her cyan-white feathered robe glowed with silver-white lightning. Her profile shone bright in the light, tinged with an apricot-white luster that reached her chin. She stepped forward until she reached the front of the grand hall. 6 stone slabs extended to the entrance before her. They glowed bright silver-white, with even brighter patterns blooming across them. 9 enormous pillars stood in a row, each entwined with itself and seamlessly integrated with the main columns. Dazzling white runes soared upward, circling and leaping around the pillars. Thread-like lightning crackled as they wove through the runes. Her cloth shoes disintegrated in the dazzling thunder, leaving her barefoot on the stone slabs. Li Qinghong, draped in a long feathered cyan robe, stepped across the shining white stone slabs and approached the grand hall doors. She placed a slender hand lightly upon them and slowly pushed. Faces began to appear before her eyes, her father Li Xuanling's steady, gentle brows, her mother Lu Wanrong's sorrowful expression, her elder brother Li Yuanxiu's bright profile, Li Yuanjiao's cold and sinister gaze, Li Xuanxuan's look of hopeful concern. The bright white doors emitted a sharp crack of thunder, as ferocious dragons on both sides roared. The carvings of the watching immortals slowly sank into darkness, revealing a vague purple-black glow. Li Qinghong gazed quietly into the hall. There was nothing inside but an endless, boundless black void. 2 beams of golden light fell from the sky, illuminating her face. A handsome youth in an immaculate cloud-patterned Taoist robe stood in the void. He bowed slightly toward her and said softly, I am Dongfeng Heian. Taoist friend, please follow me inside. He led Li Qinghong forward into the endless black void. His voice was clear and polite. Taoist friend, please look. Dongfeng Heian extended his hand into the black void. Li Qinghong looked closely, focusing her sight to its utmost, and at last she saw countless faint white lightning currents spiraling and twisting through the darkness, stretching endlessly into the sky. The lightning that fell from the sky came from the mouth of a pitch-black abyss. This object was unimaginably massive, extending all the way up to the pinnacle of the black void before coiling downward into the deep darkness at its base. The 2 golden suns hung directly above her. She and the grand hall doors behind her were so tiny they looked like small dots of light as they vanished in the endless purple-black void. Dragon, Chapter 867, Urgent Persuasion I. Jang lifted his head to gaze at the astral chi tearing through the sky, trailing a long golden flame. Its golden light was as brilliant as a sword that split a dark cloud in 2. His expression remained unchanged, but he silently stepped back as the golden light manifested before him. Clad in thunder, Li Qinghong twirled her slender hand, retracting her long spear, which now hung upside down behind her as purple lightning rained down. A man in platinum armor appeared beside her. The man had a broad chest, sharp eyes, and was slightly taller than Li Qinghong. He was clad in armor and wielded a massive, fierce golden bow. He hovered in the air, invisible astral chi spreading around him. His eyes under long eyebrows opened like an eagle's, scanning the heavy demonic clouds. Second uncle. Li Qingheng said delightedly, and the man in platinum armor nodded slowly, raising his gaze to meet Yu Jiang's eyes. His eyes were only slightly cold, but Yu Jiang involuntarily gritted his teeth, feeling as if ice and snow had fallen on him from head to calf. The young man forced himself not to look away and quietly met the gaze. He saw the man's brow twitch upward, his black-gray pupils slowly dilating, and all the fierce killing intent dissipated. The man's lips trembled, and Yu Jiang heard a hoarse voice, "You." The youth felt frozen stiff all over, but that single word made hot blood surge to his head. His hand clutching the talisman twitched twice, and a strange thought crossed his mind. His voice sounds much older than his face. Yu Jiang raised his hand and touched his storage pouch, taking something out. He tried to steady his voice but couldn't help the slight tremble as he said, "Senior." He produced a golden arrow, heavy and cold, with bright feathers at the tail. Its arrowhead was finely polished and shining with a faint glow. A few small characters were carved on the shaft, Li Xuanfeng of Yi Mountain. The bold script revealed the owner's spirit. The man's gaze fell on the arrow, and the youth even felt it grow heavier in his hand. Li Xuanfeng then intently examined Yu Jiang's eyes and brows. The youth maintained his composure and spoke softly, "This is yours, senior. I am returning it." Li Xuanfeng's gaze lingered on the arrow for a moment. Yu Jiang vaguely heard his restrained breathing, then that slightly hoarse voice sounded again, "So it was you." Those words felt like they burned the youth, and he immediately closed his eyes. His figure turned from black to gray, then slowly faded away, leaving behind a wisp of black smoke that drifted away in the air, vanishing without a trace. Li Xuanfeng still stood steadily, the dimly glowing arrow floating in the air. His emotions were hidden beneath his iron-hard demeanor, and no one could see anything from his face. Astral chi twisted in the air, occasionally brushing against Li Qingheng's cyan sparrow plume and producing a sharp, grating sound. Li Qingheng carefully studied Li Xuanfeng's face, then recalled Yu Jiang's face, her expression turning thoughtful. Li Xuanfeng maintained his rigid posture, his voice slightly hoarse as he spoke softly, "So it was you." Li Qingheng stood beside him as a beam of green light streaked across the sky and landed nearby, revealing a middle-aged man with a sword at his waist, exuding a touch of elegance. He stared solemnly at the dark clouds in the north, his expression grave. "This is bad, brother Xuanfeng." This man was naturally Si Yuanli. He and Li Xuanfeng had just escaped from Chengshui Tomb in Great Ning Palace and rushed over just in time to see the rolling demonic smoke. He knew well the filth between the various sects and the schemes between the Purple Mansion realm cultivators. When he saw the rolling demonic smoke along the way and recalled that all the Purple Mansion realm cultivators were trapped inside, his heart trembled. He whispered, "Brother Xuanfeng, I fear this is the plot of another sect. This is trouble." Si Yuanli glanced carefully across the river, then immediately turned to look at Li Qingheng behind him and asked quietly, "Where is Kai Jian? Is he stationed at the rear? Who is in charge of the riverbank defense? Have him come out to see me at once." Though Si Yuanli had recently kept a low profile in Great Ning Palace, in the end, he was highly valued and Si Boxu's direct descendant. Even though he usually held no position within the sect, he did not need to bow to Kai Jian. Moreover, although the Si family was small in number and usually kept a low profile, Si Boxu was fiercely protective of his own. Even Si Yuanbai, known to be kind, once threw 12 rain summoning talismans at Yunwu Peak in a fit of anger and nearly flooded it. His words were cold and instantly revealed his status, but Li Qingheng returned the courtesy with a light bow and said gently, reporting to Senior, "There is no one in charge of the riverbank." Si Yuanli seemed to vaguely understand and replied coldly, "Where is Kai Jian?" "My lord is still at Mount Bianyan." Li Qingheng's voice was gentle, and her etiquette impeccable as she politely replied, "My lord took his trusted followers to guard Mount Bianyan to observe the situation within the devil cultivators, so as to better plan for us." She spoke politely, but when he saw Li Zijai beside her look away and Li Ziming curl his lip, Si Yuanli immediately understood and laughed in anger. What a coward. He's not even worth a hair of his brother. He's still worrying about that at a time like this. Sitting back while the riverbank collapses and all the cultivators rush in to seize Jiangnan's lands. Si Yuanli's eyes narrowed, and a chill suddenly crept into his heart. The man may be greedy and timid, but he's no fool. Could it be that he knows Kai Tianxing and others died in Anhui Heaven, leaving the Kai family without Purple Mansion realm cultivators? Does he now fear losing control and wants to cut off branches to preserve the trunk? But Kai Jian is still around. Could Kai Jian have already gone into seclusion to break through to the Purple Mansion realm? Growing up in the sect, Si Yuanli was especially sensitive to these factional struggles. The Si family was small in number, and the Kai family wasn't much better. However, the Kai family's internal struggles had grown increasingly intense in recent years. It was a dire situation. He felt uneasy at this thought. He lightly brushed the silk pouch at his waist, took out a small bright bead, and blew on it, instantly releasing a wisp of white wind. The wind enveloped them all, isolating them from the outside world. Only then did Si Yuanli's expression darken as he spoke. I just remembered something. The Kai family only have a few direct descendants from 2 generations, and now they're dead in Anhui heaven. Taoist Master Buzi has been missing for years. How could Kai Jian not be afraid? Although the devil plague was terrifying, and many direct descendants from various families died, the best among them survived thanks to Li Xuanfeng holding off Tang Shedu at Chengshui tomb. Instead, they seized a lot of resources, completed many cultivation techniques, and even learned many secrets. There aren't many Foundation Establishment realm cultivators in these families, but every one of them clawed their way up. There aren't any disposable guest cultivators among them. Just look at your esteemed family and you'll understand. Chapter 868, Urgent Persuasion, II. Si Yuanli's eyes narrowed as he spoke in a low voice. The Azure Pawn sect is different from the Golden Feather sect. It exploits far too harshly. The Golden Feather sect has plenty of family and rogue Foundation Establishment realm cultivators they can throw at the slaughter. But which Foundation Establishment realm cultivator left alive in the Azure Pawn sect's territory is an easy target. They can only carve flesh from their own bodies. Most of the Foundation Establishment realm cultivators lost in the North-South struggle were the Azure Pawn sect's guest cultivators and Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. Once Kai Jian counted the losses, he must have realized he couldn't afford any more. That's why he's consolidating power and using this crisis to cut away everyone's strength. Si Yuanli's voice remained quiet. I understand now. The Purple Mansion realm cultivators were simply convenient meat for the Azure Pawn sect to carve up. Kai Jian reacted quickly, immediately choosing a method that balanced gains and losses to minimize his own damage. Li Qinghang's heart cleared. How could she not understand after that? She thought silently, so some of the Purple Mansion realm cultivators who bear deeper grudges against the Azure Pawn sect are not satisfied. Li Qinghang glanced silently at Li Xuanfeng and suddenly understood the message Kong Tingyun had brought from Taoist Master Chengxi. She thought to herself, perhaps that message wasn't meant for me at all, but for Second Uncle. She used a secret technique to transmit her voice. Second Uncle. I passed by Profound Peak Gate earlier, and Taoist friend Tingyun brought a message from Taoist Master Chengxi. Li Xuanfeng listened carefully, and at last his expression changed. His sharp brows relaxed, and his voice turned deep and hoarse as he muttered, flooding the seedlings and wiping out 100 years of harvest is certainly satisfying. But when the river flows back and drowns the steps of the courtyard, that's even more gratifying. His words seemed like a recitation, but they made Si Yuanli shiver in fear as he turned to stare blankly at Li Xuanfeng. How could he not understand the meaning of those words? As long as the riverbank was harder to swallow than Mount Bianyan, then naturally the river would flow back to attack Mount Bianyan in the Devil Cultivator's isolated heartland. But Mount Bianyan contained the Kai family's direct descendants. Compared to the severe losses the Azure Pawn sect families suffered from the flooding of the seedlings, it was truly drowning the courtyard steps, the Kai family's direct line. It would truly wound them to the bone. When Si Yuanli heard this, his heart was pounding like a drum, and all the blood rushed to his head, river flowing back. River flowing back. Such a counterattack was extremely brilliant. It was so legitimate that even Kai Jian couldn't pick a flaw in it. Yet Si Yuanli hesitated, to the point that the Dharma light on his body flickered faintly. He certainly enjoyed seeing the Kai family make a fool of themselves. He'd even laugh heartily at the deaths of Kai Tianxing and Kai Fuju. Yet in the end, the Kai, Si, Ning, and Tang families were all one body. Though he'd suffered much oppression in terms of benefits, he'd never harbored the intention to actively persecute them. This method was good, even legitimate, but who with eyes couldn't see it? Making that decision meant offending the Kai family. When he heard those words spoke aloud, even someone as composed as he felt a sense of panic in his heart. Though his face remained calm, the hand gripping his sword hilt turned white. Li Xuanfeng slowly raised his head, his eyes sharp enough to terrify and his voice cold and hoarse, but his words struck right at Si Yuanli's heart. Taoist friend Yuanli, why would the Taoist master give the Huey River map to me? This is an ancient spirit artifact originally meant to guard the riverbank. Guard the riverbank. Could it be for this very moment? That straightforward statement shattered Si Yuanli's psychological defenses as a cold fear, like 10,000 years of black ice, rose in his heart. The meaning was perfectly clear. Si Boxiu himself also supported this move, but the Taoist master clearly didn't tell me beforehand. Si Yuanli was instantly thrown into confusion. Yuan Ziu had never shown any dislike towards the Kai family, and he'd even often treated them courteously. He'd even gone so far as to ask people to bring the Kai family to Great Ning Palace. He couldn't have tried harder. But the thoughts of Purple Mansion realm cultivators are unfathomable. Who knows what the Taoist master was really thinking? His heart sank. Across from him, Li Xuanfeng's gravelly voice aligned perfectly with his own thoughts. Kai Tianxing and Kai Fuju were also specifically invited by the Taoist master. The same words from his mouth carried a completely different flavor. Kai Tianxing and Kai Fuju were now probably unrecognizable corpses in Anhui heaven. Si Yuanli couldn't help but feel suspicious. Could the Taoist master have done this on purpose? All the evidence pointed to Si Boxiu's instructions, yet Si Yuanli couldn't help but feel a lingering doubt. Every clue now darted through his mind along with Li Xuanfeng's words, making his head pound as though it might split open. Li Xuanfeng simply spread his hands, revealing a small golden talisman in his palm that was only 2 fingers wide and filled with pure white patterns. He said coldly, "Brother Yuanli, you can see for yourself. This talisman was handed to me privately by the Taoist master. Perhaps it was for this very moment. It shouldn't be shown in private, but the urgency of the situation leaves no choice." He spoke solemnly. "The Taoist master saved my life from Maha's hands and helped me greatly. I remember that in my heart. As long as Brother Yuanli gives the order, I will certainly act. But if Brother Yuanli wants to abandon the river and leave..." Li Xuanfeng's expression was calm as he spoke quietly. "Of course, I will hand over the spirit artifact and talisman to Brother Yuanli, but I cannot disregard the millions of people behind me. I will stay here and defend them to the very end." Si Yuanli didn't even need to look closely. This talisman was extremely powerful, and he'd personally seen the Taoist master refine it with his divine abilities. He never expected to find it in Li Xuanfeng's hands. He silently took a breath, unable to find words, and murmured, "How can this be?" Beside them, Li Qingheng had understood everything. She stepped forward and urged softly but urgently, "Senior, I won't speak of my own private concerns in my home region. Even if we can't hold this place, my family still has the means to protect itself. But behind this river are millions of common people, all depending on us." Si Yuanli fell silent, but the devil cultivators across the river could no longer hold back. The heavy devil winds slowly approached. The white mist dissipated, returning into the bead in Si Yuanli's hand. Li Xuanfeng turned slightly and finally took action. Clang! He raised his bow, brilliant golden light gathering along the string. A sharp buzzing sound rang in everyone's ears, and the man's eyes filled with a fierce killing intent. His voice thundered like rolling lightning, carried by the wind. "Li Xuanfeng of Baiyan is here. Step forward and die." The voice, powered by mana, rolled through the thick black smoke like thunder rolling in the clouds. "Li Xuanfeng of Baiyan is here. Step forward and die. Step forward and die." The voice spread among the demonic sounds, actually halting the restless demonic clouds on the horizon. The gathered cultivators looked at each other, but no one dared take the first step. Only the river below continued to flow. The man in platinum armor hovered above, his cold eyes watching. He had halted the cultivators with a single shout. He regarded the thousands of devil cultivators before the river as if they were nothing. He slowly turned to look back, his sharp eyes calm, and spoke in a low voice. "Intimidation can only work for a moment. Brother Yuanli, make your decision quickly." His voice spread through the air, prompting Lingu Laniang and the others not far away to raise their heads. Si Yuanli's face flushed faintly. He exhaled heavily from deep in his chest and said solemnly, "Hold." As his words fell, the eyebrows of the man before him slowly rose. The icy calm demeanor faded away as a savage expression, like that of a tiger or a leopard, took over his face. A smile slowly curved his lips, and he showed the same wild arrogance he'd worn at the age of 6 when his uncle had pulled him from a mountain of corpses. Golden light flared, and a frozen voice rang out, "Xuanfeng obeys." Chapter 869, Lingering Sunlight Over the Huey River, I. The wind along the riverbank was fierce, with dark black rocks scattered among the river waters. The jagged stones created eddies in the flow, some calm, others turbulent. Occasionally, the reflections of the sky could be seen in the bends where the water was smooth. However, there was a single point of brightness amid the dense night fog. A man in platinum armor rose high into the sky, shining like a white star in the dim night, radiating a blazing light. The cultivators in the north hesitated for a moment, then all looked up at him. Xuanfeng of Bianyan. The crowd of cultivators did not just have rogue cultivators and family cultivators, but also experts. They were all silently waiting for something. The entire stretch of the river from north to south fell eerily silent, leaving only the sound of the surging water. Yuanli was also a decisive man. Once he'd made his decision, his mindset shifted immediately. His sword aura was ethereal as he stood beside Xuanfeng. There were many cultivators on the northern bank, yet they were divided into several factions. Several Buddhist cultivators and master monks gradually arrived, settling in the back like immovable mountains. The front was mostly made of family and rogue cultivators conscripted from the northern counties, with their sects often a mix of Taoist, Buddhist, and demonic practitioner. It made for a complicated scene. The rogue cultivators and minor sect cultivators were clearly much simpler. They were either purely practicing Taoist or devil cultivation, or sometimes both. In any case, they were all demonic in nature, with no real conflict. They were mixed with devil cultivators from all over the southern and northern regions. There were even some from overseas, all here to fish for profit. It made for a chaotic gathering. Yuanli watched for a while and even saw some Zhao state's banners. He wasn't surprised. Zhao's imperial court had become a puppet of the Buddhist Tao, but unlike Wu and Yue, it wasn't just an empty shell. The Buddhist cultivators used Zhao's court to conscript cultivators, and it looked more legitimate that way. He turned to Li Qingheng and spoke softly. Buddhist cultivators from the way of emptiness, compassion, and virtuous are gradually arriving. The northern bank is no longer as chaotic and leaderless as before. Buddhist cultivators like to seize the destiny and fortune of this north-south conflict. They definitely won't give up easily. We must remain vigilant. Boom! Thunder rumbled twice in the clouds when he finished. The dim, dark smoke rose, and Xuanfeng stood in midair, bow in hand and bathed in golden light. The cultivators he had halted with his shout began to press forward again after more than 10 seconds. Brilliant platinum light shimmered in the air, beams of bright light shooting out, piercing the night across the river. The man released the string and drew a scroll from his waist. The scroll wasn't large and looked quite ordinary, yet now all eyes from north and south were focused on him alone. Every burning gaze fell on that scroll, some curious, some suspicious. All their pupils followed its every movement. Xuanfeng's eyes also fell on the spirit artifact. He poured his spiritual sense and mana into it. The ivory-white hook fastener untied itself, and the long scroll unfurled, forming a sheet of white in the air. Xuanfeng personally held the scroll and took in its contents at a glance. It was a vast depiction of the Huey River region. The depiction covered 5,000 kilometers of the river, with rich scenery of vividly lifelike birds and beasts on both banks. It was far longer than the river at his feet as it wound and twisted its way until it flowed grandly into the eastern sea. His gaze followed the scroll all the way to the end. Huey River Map, Boiqiu Yan, year 317 of Jang. When the scroll opened, countless red light streams burst forth, swirling like fireflies in the air. Xuanfeng's voice was slightly hoarse, but sonorous and powerful, shining in the profound mystery, remnants of sunlight over the Huey River. His voice was drawn into the scroll the moment he spoke. The sky instantly brightened, and the clouds transformed into a brilliant golden hue as a sheet of bright light fell from the heavens. Below, Li Ziming's pupils slowly widened. His immortal foundation seemed to stir, letting out a series of rumbles. A dazzling brilliance was reflected in his eyes as he murmured, "Bright Yang." Before tens of thousands of onlookers, a golden light flew out from the scroll and descended from the sky. A brilliant radiance appeared beneath Xuanfeng's feet. The great river had turned into a bright, clear golden stream. The bright river continued to surge forward. A shadow faintly emerged on the water's surface, and a second later, a tall pass rose from beneath the water, breaking through the surface and soaring into the sky. The pass stretched on without end, its patterns intricate and bright. The white bricks fitted together perfectly, with a jade-like color that shone even brighter. It exuded an ancient yet elegant beauty as it rose into the sky. Splash. The heads of the assembled cultivators slowly lifted as their eyes followed the pass into the air. Golden river water shimmered as it cascaded down the pass like countless golden waterfalls. An ancient spirit artifact. Huey River Map, a voice from the north murmured. The words echoed among the cultivators, sounding especially sharp in the quiet atmosphere. The sky grew dim once more. The man in platinum armor stood atop the 100 Jang Pass, dividing north and south like an ancient celestial general. Behind him, white illusions formed concentric rings of light, illuminating the space at his side. Countless mysteries rose in Xuanfeng's mind, and both of his immortal foundations received some kind of blessing. Thick mana surged outward, allowing him to lightly float in the air. The heavenly gilded helm covering his body shone more clearly than ever, exuding a fierce and mighty aura along with dazzling platinum light. Buzz. He raised his bow, and a mysterious arrow immediately fell onto the string. Sharp light began to flicker along the bow, and powerful astral chi spread behind him, leaving golden trails that occasionally put his face in shadow. Whoosh! A flash of golden brilliance streaked through the air. All the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators felt a sudden alarm in their hearts and hastily raised their Dharma artifacts in panic. The cultivators on the riverbank froze all at once as colorful Dharma artifacts, red, orange, green, rose into the air, creating a dazzling display. Boom. But the head of a middle-aged cultivator standing on the northern bank exploded with a bang. The Dharma artifact in his hand was torn through like thin paper, raining down on the others in a flurry. The blast of Dharma light and astral chi erupted, producing a deafening roar. Rumble. The surrounding cultivators all backed away. This person hadn't even taken a single blow before being killed on the spot. His only claim to existence was a red mist rising to the sky, transforming into a crimson light like a sunset glow. A phenomenon that's truly dead. The elderly cultivator beside him turned pale, trembling as he exclaimed in fright, "Chunyu Bei is dead. Even though he was injured, that was just one arrow. How can this be reasonable? We are, after all, prefecture temple masters from many regions, yet in front of this man, we're like dogs and chickens. What's the point of fighting?" The crowd did not even have a chance to mourn before a fearful wailing rose in their ears. The cold-faced man already had 5 more arrows knocked on his bow. The embryonic breathing realm and chi cultivation realm cultivators that were at his feet, the monks and nuns, couldn't see the situation clearly and rushed forward in confusion, but every Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator collectively took a step back. Not good. Boom. Brilliant golden light exploded everywhere. Before the elder could even see who had died or been injured, several black escape lights shot into the sky. Xuanfeng exhaled lightly, and 5 more arrows appeared on his bowstring. The elder felt a cold chill on his neck, stepped back, and exclaimed in shock, "Why is no one stepping up? Are you forcing us to die for nothing?" Terror spread across the northern bank. Even the lesser cultivators on the ground raised their heads, and the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators' escape lights flickered in and out, showing signs of collapse. Chapter 870, Lingering Sunlight Over the Huey River, II. Meanwhile, the many cultivators on the southern bank were equally shocked. They all looked up at Xuanfeng in the air, expressions of joy appearing on their faces. They flew up to the pass one after another, each raising their Dharma artifact. Xuanfeng's body shone brightly as he lightly juggled the arrows in his hand. At last, the north could no longer hold out. A monk soared forward on the wind, his muscular body tense and eyes wide with anger as he shouted, "Little demon, how dare you be so insolent?" This monk, so different from the usual Buddhist cultivators with their few Dharma artifacts, now stood on a golden cloud at his feet. He also held a crescent moon spade covered in brilliant patterns. It was quite luxurious. Only then did he ride the wind upward, immediately followed by a tall, thin monk with a constant smile on his face. His left hand rested flat against his chest, thumb and index finger pinching a golden ring. He said nothing as he silently followed. Xuanfeng, empowered by the spirit artifact beneath his feet, shone with bright light that moved with his every motion. It did not just boost his physical strength and mana, but also spread his spiritual sense across the entire riverbank. He merely glanced coldly as he drew his bow, golden light streaming past both sides of his face. Buzz. Although the 2 monks called him a demon, they didn't dare to be careless. Their faces turned serious, and the smile on the thin monk's face froze, as if facing a great enemy. He raised the golden ring in his hand. The golden ring rolled and expanded in midair, revealing dense patterns. It spewed a hazy golden light that abruptly captured a speck of golden energy. The thin monk immediately beamed and commanded, "Collect." The dense clattering of metal echoed across the riverbank, making everyone's ears ring. The thin monk looked tense, as if facing a great foe, and the burly monk quickly swung his Dharma artifact forward, aiming to strike Xuanfeng. The 2 monks' brief obstruction allowed the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators behind them to finally reach the riverbank. The northern and southern cultivators clashed, countless lights rose into the sky, and roaring sounds filled the air. Xuanfeng's single arrow had been blocked, but his expression remained unchanged. He was renowned far and wide, so it was only natural that the North would send special Dharma artifacts and cultivators to counter him. It was no surprise. courting death. The tall, thin monk wasn't particularly strong. It was clear from a glance that he was just a pawn sent to probe. Only his Dharma artifact was somewhat unusual. Xuanfeng stamped his black boots, drew his bowstring, and sneered, "Go." The golden-red arrow in his hand vanished in an instant. A burst of golden-red light erupted in the sky, and the golden ring seemed to be struck hard from the front. The mana dissipated, and it reverted to its original form as it flew backward. The thin monk spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes reflecting the golden-red brilliance. Bang. Xuanfeng's full-strength shot, empowered by the Purple Mansion Realm's spirit artifact, was even more powerful than the arrow that once pierced through Tang Shedu. The thin monk's upper body was instantly torn to shreds. His lower body lingered for just a moment before being shredded by astral chi as well, leaving only a golden light drifting northward toward reincarnation. Only then did the burly monk charge forward, his body covered in golden runes. His crescent moon spade fell like a meteor from the sky, bringing a sweeping golden light crashing down. Boom! The golden light scattered, revealing a large hand covered in golden-white armor plating that had caught the Dharma artifact. Xuanfeng tightened his grip on the artifact. The platinum patterns on his face intertwined with radiant light, transforming his previously fierce features into a solemn majesty. "Just with you." The cold words froze the monk in place, preventing him from retreating. His voice thundered through the sky, "Since Tang Shedu rebelled and turned to the Merciful One, then killing me in the midst of the North-South conflict must be a fine opportunity." Circles of light rippled behind him, his golden armor shining brilliantly. The patterns on his face radiated authority. He held the burly monk's Dharma artifact lightly in his hand and cast his bright, golden gaze northward. "Come out, all of you." His voice rolled like thunder, reverberating through the clouds, drawing the attention of everyone present. Figures appeared one after another around him, some holding spears or staffs, and others cradling bottles or rings. Their faces bore the golden features of compassionate Buddhas, but their bodies were like unbreakable vajra. They stood scattered in the air, around a dozen in total, all eyes staring coldly at him. Their voices resonated through the air, some male, some female, as if tens of thousands spoke at once. Brazen demon. A young man in black emerged from the black smoke, clutching a talisman tightly. He slipped into the crowd of cultivators on the north bank, heading deeper northward until he reached a small hill on the northern side. A large, fat monk wearing a cassia approached him. He beamed as he said, "Taoist friend Yu." "Master Monk Xuanfeng," Jang responded casually, his face calm though his mind was elsewhere. He raised an eyebrow and asked, "Why does your Buddhist sect have so many Taoist and demonic cultivators under its command?" Xuanfeng chuckled twice and replied, "What are you saying? My Orthodox sect is the most magnanimous and treats all equally. How could we possibly coerce Taoists or demons, or deny others their Tao lineages? Taoist friend, you've been in the Southern Sea, and you've only heard that the Great Zhao is a Buddhist nation, so you assume too much." He spoke more seriously. "Although Great Zhao reveres Buddhism, there are still plenty of Taoists and demonic cultivators. We of the Buddhist sect prevail in the prefecture cities, but we Buddhists never interfere in the surrounding prefectures and the mountain wilderness. Those places are left for those with the affinity to find them." As he spoke, he led Jang to the top of the hill, where several people were already seated in a great hall. One of their number, wearing Taoist robes, looked sullen. When he heard Master Monk Xuanfeng from afar, he sneered, "Isn't that the truth? If there were no devil cultivators, who would even believe in Buddhism? The common folk are clever, they only become more devout when the devil cultivators grow rampant. Haven't you heard that beneath Buddhist mountain lies hell itself?" He glanced over and recognized Jang, his tone easing a bit as he casually said, "Taoist friend, you come from Danjing Wulo in the Southern Sea, the place where the revered one attained Tao. Now it's where devil cultivators are most numerous, isn't it?" Xuanfeng didn't get angry, but laughed instead. "What are you saying? We respect their Tao lineages and do not interfere with the mountain cultivators. If they cultivate themselves into demons, eat human flesh and drink blood, and frighten the common people, then in the end, we kill them. That is our merit, is it not?" The man in Taoist robes sneered but said no more. Jang turned to look over at an effeminate man in a python robe sitting silently and sipping his tea. Jang sat nearby, knowing well why he had been invited. Still he spoke coldly, "Master Monk, why did you so urgently ask me to come? What's the matter?" Xuanfeng chuckled and replied in a low voice, "Our Mahas, the merciful ones, have lost contact. It's time for us to ponder his true intentions. Taoist friend you're still in touch with some great cultivators. Could you give us some guidance? What is there to guide?" Jang understood his meaning, but deliberately didn't expose it. Instead, he wanted to glean more information, so he stood up and pointed south, speaking coldly. Can't you see what's happening in the south? You're asking me to break the Purple Mansion Realm's spirit artifact. You think too highly of me. That's a troublesome matter. Please find someone else for it. No. The fat, big-eared monk shook his head repeatedly as he laughed. The situation is changing. How could the plan remain the same? That ruthless man in the south. The monk laughed heartily and replied, of course that's a chance for the senior brothers of my sect. There's no need for the Taoist friends to intervene. Jiang's heart jolted at that, but then he saw the monk point northward, a smile appearing on his face as he spoke softly. Taoist friend, you have a grudge with the Azure Pond sect, do you not? Only you can quickly break the Great Formation on Mount Bianyan. Chapter 871, Breaking the Formation I. Chapter 872, Breaking the Formation II. Jong nodded, outwardly displaying a look of praise, though he thought, if I truly needed his appearance, I wouldn't need to rely on anything. It's just to dispel suspicion. He coldly glanced at all three of them. When they couldn't help but avert their gazes, he finally picked up the jade talisman, rose on the wind, and said softly, I will enter the formation. I will open the formation gate before Kaijian can react. All of you stay sharp. Do not miss this opportunity. His transformed face gave his words an added air of authority. The others felt uneasy in their hearts but nodded in response. Jiang entered the formation. After just 3 breaths, the green lotus-like formation began to flash, its light flickering on and off, revealing several openings. A roar rang out from within. Who? Kill. The voices of demon cultivators instantly shook the heavens, and countless black clouds poured through the portals. Xuanfeng laughed heartily, shouting, My opportunity to attain the Tao has come. The green lotus in Jiangbei gradually dimmed, while the radiant light in Jiangnan grew ever more brilliant. The sky was already shrouded in all sorts of Buddhist light, and the sharp energies of spears, staffs, knives, and swords interwove. Like water poured from a bottle, surging and roaring in the sky. All the master monks had appeared together, yet Xuanfeng remained as cold and hard as iron. He seized the master monk's crescent shovel with one hand. Bright light shone and wrapped around his body. But his other hand pierced straight through and exploded the master monk's head with a loud boom. Splash! The blood of the burly master monk transformed into countless drifting, fragrant lotus flowers. His headless body was now covered in cracks. The master monk abandoned even his Dharma artifact, hurriedly flying downward, grateful that Xuanfeng had used his fist instead of his arrows. The 2 small master monks used as bait had both lost the bodies they had cultivated for 100 years and fled in panic. The 14 master monks in the sky, who had specifically targeted him, finally took the opportunity to step forward. Their faces were filled with rage as they bellowed, Bold demon, how dare you act so wildly? Boom! Countless Dharma artifacts fell together, producing a deafening roar. Blades, spears, axes, and clubs all struck at once, bursting with a dazzling brilliance that made one's eyes spin. The sharpness of metal intertwined with the colorful light of the Buddhist cultivators, but everything was blocked by a single golden bow. Ha! Xuanfeng's figure sank, and his aura finally faltered. Blood appeared faintly at the corner of his mouth. The brilliant light under his feet soared as the Huey River map's mysteries operated, allowing him to break free from the encirclement of over a dozen people. He reappeared on another pass, the celestial bow in his hand gleaming sharply. Clang! A sword light suddenly leapt upward from below. Xuanfeng lifted his sword essence, but 2 master monks purposely separated from the group, each holding a bottle designed to absorb sharp energy, and tied him down. These 2 bottles were unusually shaped. They were not for spraying out, but for absorbing. Clearly, they were specifically designed to counter sword cultivators like him. It only took them a second to swallow all his sword chi, producing a metallic grinding sound. Pine white full essence sword art. Xuanfeng's azure sword flipped in his hand, weaving bits of ethereal sword brilliance. Although the 2 before him clearly targeted sword cultivators, he was no ordinary man. He fearlessly conjured countless drifting sword lights. He encircled the 2 golden body master monks before him, his expression steady. His vast and mighty swordsmanship grew ever more fluid as he seized the opportunity to observe the entire riverbank situation. There were many Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators from the north below. Li Qinghang, wielding thunder and lightning, was the most dazzling. Li Ziming held the Radiant Origin Pass, suppressing several opponents on his own. Li Zijai's spell arts were nimble, toying with groups of cultivators in the palm of his hand. All of them displayed remarkable skill, which made Xuanfeng secretly startled. the Li family of today already has the strength of the Xiao family of the olden days. Li Ziming is comparable to Xiao Yuanzi, and Li Qingheng is on par with Yuan Chengdun. As for Li Zizhai, he's also in the sect, and his tactics and scheming surpass even Xiao Yuanzi. Having grown up around the internal struggles of a minor sect, he always viewed things from the perspective of factional disputes. Even now, that was his first reaction. The more he thought, the more astonished he became, and he mused silently. I don't know if Busey has fallen, but now that my family has taken this step, we're bound to offend the Kai family in the future. Since we've already taken this step, we must draw the Li family in as an ally. All the other cultivators had to deal with enemies, but only he had the chance to help Li Xuanfeng, so he observed more closely. Yet most of his attention remained focused on Li Xuanfeng, brother Xuanfeng. The man in white gold armor had rings of light spreading out behind him, pushing back the rushing water from the spirit bottles. The longbow in his hand was drawn to a full moon as it flickered with golden light. On the other end, the Buddhist light seemed to dye the sky in colors. 12 master monks of the Buddhist cultivation each took their seats, their voices buzzing in the air in unison, Huixu demon subduing grand formation. A faint and ethereal bell rang out as deep golden patterns mingled with colorful brilliance in the air, forming a massive grand formation. Each master monk settled into their assigned positions, their Dharma artifacts shining even more brightly as a terrifying amount of power coalesced. Chapter 873, Kongsijang Demon Bowl I. This man was dressed in typical Fei family attire, and the spear in his hand was scarred and broken. Decades of managing the household had worn away all the color from his face, yet he still retained a trace of the nobleman's bearing. This was none other than Fei Tongyu, the current head of the Fei family on the north bank of Moongaze Lake. The Fei family had fallen into silence and decline over the decades. Fei Tongyu's days had been the most difficult, and that illusory sword light would always appear before him whenever he closed his eyes at night. The sight of that man casually slaughtering his grandfather, Fei Wangbai, like a dog, would always play in his mind. From that day on, the Fei family could no longer restore the patterned brocade that had been passed down for generations. A century of accumulation had evaporated, and starting anew plunged them into endless torment. He had truly awakened from nightmares too many times to ever mistake it. It was definitely that person in the sky. Fei Tongyu's current position was so humble that he didn't even have the qualifications to know that person's name, yet he was not anxious. He murmured, "Such a big matter. King Yi can find out. Good, good." The man who had always been as hesitant as a white weasel calmly gazed at the vast rainbow light in the sky. Clearly, even a single thread of that force could tear him to shreds, yet he felt no fear. He murmured, "As long as there is a place for vengeance to go, I fear not its disappearance. You beheaded my grandfather and left his corpse lying in the snow under the eyes of all. The body could not be joined back together for 3 months. The Fei family still has 3,000 people who hate with their ancestors' weeping blood. Even a 3-year-old child in the peaks draws talismans with wooden sticks. Just wait, just wait." Those eyes sank into the black smoke and disappeared into the darkness. Meanwhile, the golden light in the sky brightened again. Yuanli remained fully focused and didn't show the slightest sign of discovering him. His blue robe fluttered as he danced through the sky, forcing the 2 master monks to retreat again and again with his ethereal and unrestrained swordsmanship. Yuanli had been sealed away by Yuanziu for many years, and he reveled in the satisfaction of displaying his sword. The pine-white full-essence sword art had a profound heritage that could be traced back to Sima Jun, who once defended the riverside of Wei State. The sword energy in his hand was snow-white, resonating with the Huey River map beneath his feet and growing ever sharper. The master monk's roar only gave him momentary pause, and the jade ring on his wrist flashed bright and dim. He immediately disengaged and glanced up at Li Xuanfeng. Li Xuanfeng had already exchanged several rounds with the master monks, filling the sky with thunderous booms. Their battle was now at a critical juncture. High in the sky, the 6 master monks glared with round, furious eyes as their Buddhist chants grew louder. Some had 3 heads, some had 6 arms, some had burning eyes on their chests, and others had 4 ears that trembled on both sides, each revealing their true form. Once they reached the level of master monk, apart from 2 special Dao lineages, most highly cultivated master monks were both male and female in form. Their faces shifted between male and female, intertwining in a rather eerie way. Their arms were strong and graceful, glinting with gold powder. They tightly gripped their Dharma artifacts, all bearing down on the golden bow that was interwoven with brilliance. The fierce golden bow had hooked onto the blades of all the weapons, holding them steadily back in midair. Xuanfeng was being restrained by 6 Buddhist cultivators. His astral chi rolled like clouds, materializing from intangible to tangible as countless sharp lights that gradually interwove in the air. They spiraled upward along the edges of his heavenly gilded helm and coiled around his body. The hand that braced the golden bow was as steady as a mountain, yet streams of golden light flowed out from between his fingers. A white scroll unfurled beside him, drifting like a long snake, and Xuanfeng suddenly vanished. The 6 Buddhist cultivators' Dharma artifacts simultaneously dropped down before they caught themselves. 6 pairs of eyes, seemingly cast from the same mold, all turned in unison and caught sight of the man in platinum armor manifesting in the south. His longbow was drawn like a full moon and aimed straight at them. Clang! The 3 golden rings in the air suddenly leaped in place, bursting with a dazzling light as if they had seized a fiercely struggling foe. They emitted a frenzied metallic clashing sound, but Xuanfeng's bowstring did not pause. Clang, 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 clang. The 3 Buddhist cultivators holding the golden rings paled as they simultaneously spat out blood. The remaining 9 hurriedly formed seals and cast their spells, chanting deep, complex incantations that bewitched the mind, murmuring in the air. We respectfully summon the Jang demon bowl. The grand formation trembled as the great void cracked open with a roar. A point of golden light darted through, falling right in the middle of the 12. It rippled outward like a small stone dropping into water, swiftly gathering and solidifying into a large purple bowl. The purple bowl was encircled by 2 black bands. It bore no inscriptions, yet it was mysterious and solid. Its black mouth swallowed and held countless incoming golden lights, a treasure of the purple mansion realm. Xuanli's expression instantly sank, and he grew wary. He secretly sensed some terrifying news. This Jang demon bowl was unmistakably something a Maha had bestowed. It had undoubtedly been summoned at the directive of one of the 7 Dharma forms. Its descent here signified that at least one Maha was currently paying close attention to them. Ha 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 ha. Xuanli grew extremely vigilant. These 12 had summoned a Dharma artifact specifically meant for Xuanfeng. The frustration they had felt in failing to defeat a single man earlier dissolved a little, and they all began to laugh loudly, their voices overlapping and resounding through the sky. A mere tribe from the southern barbarian Mount Huey dares to test the holy laws of our orthodox sect. The revered one is merciful, but we will make sure you fall here today. This voice roared like thunder, causing many cultivators to turn their heads. No matter how powerful Xuanfeng was, he was only one man. He was facing 12 orthodox master monks of the Way of Emptiness. Each one was at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm. They were not just capable of borrowing power from higher forces, but also possessed extremely sophisticated formations. How could one person possibly stop them? At that moment, Li Qinghang's expression creased with worry as she considered how to abandon her current foe and rush forward to help. She almost convinced herself that by fully activating her vast sky fierce sparrow, she could still pose a threat to the cultivators even if she took a few more injuries, but Xuanfeng's expression did not change. He said softly, "Just watch." As soon as Xuanfeng finished speaking, the golden string in his hand flickered. The scroll at his side leaped into the air and unfurled in midair, twisting and turning like a swimming dragon. A brilliant silver light shone from it. Countless golden rays surged from his hands. It was like a dam bursting as a flood gushed forth. In an instant, countless beams of profound light flew into that clear silver light. When the golden rays touched the silver light, they immediately split into gold and silver, then split again, and again until they leaped into the clouds high above. Clang! The sky was filled with profound light rushing toward the heavens. However, before it could fall back down, the silver light swept down first. The purple bowl held up somewhat better, but the 3 golden rings were jolted askew as if struck by a speeding comet, wobbling crazily. Clang, 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 clang. The 3 Buddhist cultivators controlling the golden rings turned pale, but with the help of the formation balancing their mana, their complexions quickly warmed again. Yet all 12 Buddhist cultivators hesitated for a brief moment. This grand formation had a long heritage and was incredibly wondrous. The 12 of them could not only balance their mana and distribute damage evenly, but also connect their minds. They instantly started communicating through the array. This demon is formidable. The Jang demon bowl can only hold so much. How can we waste it so easily? Better to put it away first and use the formation to respond. None of these Buddhist cultivators were simple. They refused to give Xuanfeng a chance to test the Jang demon bowl. The purple bowl vanished, and the 12 returned to their formation, intoning in a booming voice, Me. Chapter 874, Kongsejong Demon Bowl, II. A massive golden formation spanned the banks, with countless golden incantations flowing through it. It manifested in the shape of a slightly tilted circular array that was as large as a mountain. It scattered clouds and demons alike with an overwhelming presence. What an incredible formation! By this point, the cultivators on both sides of the battlefield were gradually losing their fighting spirit, but they were all bound by orders from above, so none dared to stop. When they sensed the commotion, they all looked up but had no time to examine the formation closely. They vaguely saw a flickering behind it. Xuanfeng finally lost his composure, and the light of his sword wavered slightly. Luckily, his opponent had long been beaten to the point of being unable to retaliate, so this slip caused no consequence. Yet his heart was filled with terror, and he muttered in a low voice, 32,768. As his words faded, a sky full of stars appeared above him, intertwined in gold and silver. They flickered uncertainly as they slowly grew larger in the pupils of the onlooking cultivators, transforming into a sea of profound light that fell from the sky. But the heavenly downpour was preceded by an aggressively sharp aura. What is this? Is this Foundation establishment realm? The cultivators below had all lost color in their faces. Li Qinghang's eyes turned slightly red as she thought silently, second uncle must have used a secret technique that burns his own lifespan for Yuanziu. The sky full of profound light fell like a torrential rain, and the many lesser cultivators on the ground immediately ran for cover. Fortunately, the light gathered on its own halfway down and slammed down on the central formation like a falling river of stars. The 12 Buddhist cultivators were all pinned inside the formation. Their eyes were filled with gold and silver light. The formation wavered like a lotus leaf in the rain, tilting this way and that, but in the end there were 12 of them. Every so often, one of them would cough up blood, yet the formation remained unbroken. The 12 master monks were temporarily suppressed, and the profound light filling the sky had not hit the ground, yet the lesser cultivators on both sides retreated to either bank. The Foundation establishment realm cultivators also had no intention of stopping them. The torrential rain of profound light and golden mist forced the offensives on both the north and south sides to temporarily cease. The cultivators on both sides lost their will to fight. Those at the embryonic breathing and chi cultivation realms withdrew one after another, leaving only the Foundation establishment realm cultivators still locked in a stalemate. By now, almost everyone on the field understood clearly that the outcome came down to Li Xuanfeng and these 12 Buddhist cultivators. Either Li Xuanfeng would kill all 12, forcing the north to retreat, or the 12 master monks would slay Li Xuanfeng. Once Li Xuanfeng died, the Huey River map would naturally collapse, and the northern cultivators would have a chance to advance south. As tens of thousands looked on, the golden string in Li Xuanfeng's hand was drawn back to its full length. His eyes shone with astonishing brightness. Even with the boost from the ancient spirit artifact, it was still not enough. 2 streams of his immortal foundation within him began to evaporate recklessly, giving off a thin golden mist. Over the years, Li Xuanfeng had naturally learned methods to burn his essence chi and lifespan. He had studied the Foundation sacrifice stabilizing technique, a secret of the Ning family. He had already used it once back when he killed Tang Shedu. This secret technique came with extremely severe aftereffects, often overdrawing 30 to 40% of one's immortal foundation, leading to a collapse of one's cultivation. Although he had used this technique once to kill Tang Shedu, he had remained stable in the Great Ning Palace thanks to Yuanziu's intervention and his current state. His cultivation was largely stored in talisman seeds and nearly half separated from his body. Thus, he was effectively always borrowing power from the talisman seeds. This unexpectedly had its advantages, where his immortal foundation was supported by the talisman seeds, and unless he exhausted it all at once with the secret technique, his cultivation would not collapse no matter how he drew on it. Thus, now he wielded the technique again without hesitation, seizing the moment while the 12 were tied down. The golden-red arrow in his hand grew ever more solid, with surging mana and astral chi condensing in his grip. Buzz, the sky full of profound light lasted dozens of breaths. When that golden-silver brilliance finally faded, the golden-red light in Li Xuanfeng's hand also disappeared at the same time. The 12 trembled as one but had no time to summon the Kongsejong Demon Bowl. Only the 3 golden rings floated up alone and suddenly grabbed something. The 3 circular rings paused for a moment and buckled. An instant later, the Dharma artifact let out a sharp tearing sound in the air. Ka-ka clang. The 3 Dharma artifacts exploded, scattering golden fragments that fell with a rustling sound. The 3 Buddhist cultivators had severed their connection with the Dharma artifacts in time, yet they still coughed up blood, their faces pale as gold paper. Fortunately, it had bought them enough time. The purple-gold bowl reappeared in the air, swallowing the freed golden-red arrow. It shook twice, then flickered bright and dim. The 12 Buddhist cultivators seized the moment and decisively leaped from their positions. They put away the bowl, and the remaining 9 Buddhist cultivators shifted positions, reforming the grand formation. They shouted in unison, "We beseech Xuanfeng, true path to subdue the demon." The sky vibrated with a roar. The remaining 9 Buddhist cultivators' bodies shone brightly. A pair of cold, emotionless eyes opened on their chests in unison. Golden lines erupted all over their faces. They no longer looked human. The strange eyes all turned toward Xuanfeng. There was no colorful light or golden brilliance, no sign of anything tearing through the air, but the radiance beneath his feet trembled, causing the cultivator's footing to sway. The bright light on Xuanfeng's body dimmed for an instant, and he was frozen in place. The 9 Buddhist cultivators all leaped forward together. The formation beneath their feet dissolved instantly, and they attacked together, empowered by Xuanfeng's true form. Boom. In that instant, gold clashed with stone, like the meeting of a landslide and a tsunami. All the brilliance in the sky dimmed, and both the northern and southern banks froze simultaneously. 10 Buddhist cultivators struck together, empowered by Xuanfeng's true form that had been summoned by the grand formation. Their combined strength had reached a terrifying level. Xuanfeng stood to the side, a sense of impending doom rising in his heart. He exclaimed in horror, "I underestimated them." The radiant pass beneath his feet wavered. Xuanfeng broke into a cold sweat. Panicked, he searched the intertwining golden and multicolored lights of the various weapons and saw a hint of red. Ting-ting. The scattered droplets of blood were like shattered strings of jade pearls, each round and crystal clear, scattering in all directions. When they struck the Dharma artifacts stacked by the master monks, they actually rang with a sound like jade beads. Clatter, clatter. Blood dripped and turned into a golden rain in the dim sky. Under the gaze of countless anxious or relieved eyes, both the golden bow and Xuanfeng's figure vanished. Where is that fierce man? Could he have turned to ashes and smoke? Xuanfeng stared as the blood rain fell. Suddenly, he heard a crisp clash of metal on metal, and an icy, hoarse voice echoed in the sky, carrying all the way to the ears of the northern and southern cultivators. When the heavenly stem meets Ren and Gui, gold is used to its utmost. The crisp clash of metal grew even louder, almost louder than thunder itself. The cold, hoarse voice grew even deeper. Invoke the proper position of the metal of Shen and Yu. Grant me dominion over metal. Follow current novels on Free, B novel. COM Chapter 875, Monarch calling command Golden Talisman. What is this? The 12 Buddhist cultivators, each with a different expression, cautiously landed, reforming the massive golden formation that spanned the great river. The faces of males and female alike glittered with golden powder, but they were all filled with suspicion and uncertainty. All the cultivators craned their necks as they searched the sky. They came from diverse backgrounds. Some were peak masters of Azure Pond Peak, some from southern clans, some had gained fame at a young age, and some were seasoned veterans. But everyone was watching intently. Could he be dead? Could he really be dead? Below, a middle-aged man in splendid robes wore a solemn expression. He was none other than Yuan Hudu, head of the Yuan family, who had once been struck by an arrow. His face remained calm, but inside he was more anxious than anyone. His strength surpassed the norm long ago. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? He searched carefully, his hand half-heartedly continuing his spellcasting, as he listened to the whispers around him. In the sky, 2 points of platinum light drifted downward. Xuanfeng. In the sky, Xuanfeng, dressed in fluttering azure robes, wore a complex expression as he looked at the white-armored man appearing not far away. The proper position of metal in Shen and Yu had transformed into the white of the west. Xuanfeng's heavenly gilded helm had responded first to the talisman and turned pure white. Stark white lines crawled up his cheek to the corner of his eye and then into his gaze. Grant me dominion over metal. Xuanfeng had always thought this talisman was a kind of supportive technique or protective spell. Only now did he realize that the reason Xuanfeng had recognized the monarch calling command Golden Talisman at a glance was not because it was something Boxu had simply crafted. It was actually a treasure, perhaps a talisman tool or even a Dao treasure. Of course. How could a single talisman suffice for something as important as Annihilation Heaven? Anyone who enters must surely have at least one Purple Mansion realm item. Both of Xuanfeng's immortal foundations resonated with the Monarch calling command Golden Talisman. As his spiritual sense flooded into it, the last doubt in his heart finally dissolved completely. Why me? Why the heavenly gilded helm? He thought. Could the goodwill of a Purple Mansion realm Taoist master be without cause? The Monarch calling command Golden Talisman had always been Boxu's trump card, and the heavenly gilded helm its most compatible vessel. Boxu had specially refined a pill, and likely added many techniques to make this immortal foundation resonate with this set of treasures. Now, the heavenly gilded helm poured into the Monarch calling command Golden Talisman, drawing out all the stored divine abilities and mana within. At this moment he looked like the incarnation of slaughtering metal, clad in white armor, fearsome and fierce. White energy dripped from his elbows, dyeing his golden bow a cold, ghostly white. Autumn dew fell from the sky like raindrops, pitter-pattering around him. Is he really Xuanfeng? The doubt even surfaced in the minds of the onlookers. A ring of bright light shimmered behind the man as he stood on the pass gate. Autumn dew flew sideways as he stood unmoving, but that cold, white metal aura silenced them all. Xuanfeng's pupils were fixed on the 12 master monks. Fear finally filled the 12. They could no longer utter their earlier words about subduing demons and evil spirits. They all avoided his gaze but quickly recovered, and their expressions turned angry as if their pride had been trampled. They roared, "What a monster! You dare resist!" Their hands did not stop casting spells. The Dharma bottle in the sky glowed with bright lake water, spraying gleaming droplets once again. The water droplets circled the light around him, mixing with the autumn dew and losing their way. The scorching and sharp mirror light of a golden mirror shot toward him, but it dissolved in front of him and disappeared. Xuanfeng merely opened his fierce eyes slightly, staring at them with a terrifying presence. Ha 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 ha. As silence fell over the north and south, laughter suddenly rang from the north. A few more master monks tore through the air, their attire completely different from those before. The leader appeared to have come from afar, his body covered with scattered wooden talismans and his clothes full of patches. He took one look at the grand formation, then burst out laughing and jeered. "Suin, you and your brothers are all a bunch of useless trash. Such a golden opportunity. More than a quarter of an hour and you still couldn't take him down. Now that we're here, if the way of emptiness can't swallow this meat, we'll take a share of it too." He laughed for 2 seconds before realizing how eerily quiet it was over the river. He awkwardly stopped, scanned the scene, and saw that 3 of the 12 had withered auras and the other 9 bore slight injuries. Then he looked toward the man in white armor across from him. The monk's expression quickly turned solemn. After glancing at the bright gate under his feet, he quietly retreated a step. The sky was filled with distorted, translucent, slightly white metal chi. Xuanfeng remained motionless, silently resonating with the Monarch calling command Golden Talisman within him as his aura steadily rose to its peak. The cold, white metal chi seemed ready to slice open Yuanli's cheek. Of course, he knew exactly what was happening and was extremely familiar with the Monarch calling command Golden Talisman. This was a treasure of the Sea family. Though it was called a talisman, it was more like a spirit artifact. After each use, it required a Purple Mansion realm Taoist master's personal spellcasting to restore it before it could be used again. It was the ultimate object, but it was not something just anyone could wield. Each person's power differed. Without a special technique, only a Purple Mansion realm cultivator could truly unleash its might. He had never doubted Boxu's actions, yet he felt both awe and fear again at the far-reaching vision of the Purple Mansion realm cultivator. He thought to himself, the heavenly gilded helm. Brother Xuanfeng actually brought the Monarch calling command Golden Talisman to such a level. Never mind this place, who in Annihilation Heaven could be his match even for one round. Everyone watched him in stunned amazement. The 12 tried probing attacks to no avail, and as time slowly passed, they finally exchanged glances. The massive formation in the sky reassembled. Brilliant golden light flowed, and a whispering chant fell from the 12's mouths in unison, echoing in the sky. It grew from a murmur like an ant swarm to a roar like thunder until it gradually reached its peak. Xuanfeng moved. He still held the white bow, forged from the metal of Shen and Yu, and perfectly attuned to his mana. The savage expression on his face had faded, leaving only a slender sharpness. As he drew it fully, it truly resembled an autumn moon, yet there was no arrow on the bow. Everyone was puzzled, but before the 12 could react, something seemed to dart across the sky. The sky slowly turned white, and autumn dew fell like rain. A chill descended from above. What? Xuanfeng had already disengaged from his duel with two other cultivators. He gently reached out and caught a small object amidst the falling autumn dew. He slowly opened his hand and saw a pink flower petal nestled in his palm. The sun shone brightly, the clouds in the sky dispersed, and countless pale pink flower petals fell from above. A sound of mixed joy and sorrow filled the air, carrying a faint, eerie fragrance. The petals were tender pink, exuding a delicate fragrance, resembling both a lotus and a peony. They floated on the north wind, drifting across the stunned eyes of the Buddhist cultivators and gracefully falling into the surging river below. Xuanfeng's gaze followed the pink petals swirling on the river's surface. Slowly he raised his head and his eyes found the master monks on the opposite side. Of the 12 master monks, only 11 remained. Chapter 876, Clash Between Evils. One arrow. Xuanfeng stood in the air, clad in gleaming white armor. The markings on his face shone as his long brows relaxed. His white radiance flowed across his chiseled face, and his eyes were fixed on the distance. Petals fluttered down from the sky behind him. It was an omen marking the fall of a Buddhist cultivator. One arrow from Xuanfeng had caused the heavens to pale and obliterated the monk without even a chance at reincarnation. Everyone stared in stunned silence. There was not a whisper on either the Jiangnan and Jiangbei sides. Only the faint crashing of water against the rocks echoed as countless eyes watched the petals fall, killed by a single arrow. Many embryonic breathing and Qi cultivation realms cultivators were at a loss as they only saw a monk fall on the Buddhist side. Cheers erupted in the south, while some in the north remained silent. Others gnashed their teeth, cursing the demon under their breath. But the Foundation Establishment realm cultivators all fell silent. These were all prominent figures from Jiangnan and Jiangbei. This great battle between the two sides had broadened their horizons. Cases of one-shot kills among Foundation Establishment realm cultivators weren't unheard of. Notable figures in the southern-northern struggle, such as Chuoba Changyuan, Tang Shedu, Lingu Rao, and even some from the Murong family, could easily dispatch early-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators in one exchange. Xuanfeng himself had risen to fame after slaying Murong Wu in a mere 15 minutes. Yet, though those 12 monks varied in strength, they were all proper cultivators of the Void Path, to kill one with a single arrow. The most troublesome part of the monk's path was their reincarnation method. Unless they were destroyed in an instant, body and soul, they could always revive through a devout follower. That arrow had utterly erased both body and soul. It was an unbelievable feat. A shared thought rose in everyone's heart. Could it be that a special purple mansion realm talisman was activated with that incantation and bound to the arrow? Is this really Xuanfeng, or did he unleash some kind of demonic force? The monk holding the pagoda had not merely been slain. The arrow had shattered his body and soul. The Huixu demon subduing grand formation collapsed with a boom, and the Kongsijang demon bowl could no longer be maintained. The remaining 11 monks turned pale, staring in shock and pain at the flower rain filling the sky. Sumo has returned to the Buddhist soil. Shock and suspicion surged among the remaining 11 monks. All of Jiangnan and Jiangbei seemed paralyzed for a moment. No one moved, and only the white-armored man's bowstring stirred. Buzz, the white bow instantly bent into a full moon shape. All 11 felt like blades were pressed against their backs, and sweat poured down in unison. Their hands twitched, but none managed to form a spell before a fragrant breeze swept over them. The sky brightened once more. Too fast. The Dharma artifact of the ring-holding monk shattered. His face was pale, then abruptly went slack. Flower petals filled the sky again, mixed with dewdrops like jade pearls and an auspicious glow that filled the sky. All hearts turned cold. Another arrow. No, only 10 of the 11 monks remained in the air. Their minds went blank, leaving just one word. The northern cultivators were the only ones who were even faster. The very moment the bowstring rang out, the demonic clouds over the north had already begun to scatter like melting snow under the sun. Countless streaks of escape light erupted, filling the sky with chaotic colors as everyone fled northward. Whoosh, the entire northern bank of cultivators rooted. All sorts of Dharma artifacts shot skyward as they scrambled to flee north. The Foundation Establishment realm cultivators vanished in a single breath, while the embryonic breathing realm, Qi cultivation realm disciples, and monks below were thrown into chaos. They rose and fell, colliding in disarray. The northern factions had always been a disorganized mess. Thus, the beginning of the rout was like a dam breaking as everyone started to flee in all directions. Some greedy individuals even took the opportunity to attack one another amid the chaos, sending blood light flashing across the sky. Shouts rang out, "Run quickly! head to Mount Bianyan. The great formation there has broken. The northern bank, long shrouded in demonic smoke, was finally cleared. Only bloodstains remained on the ground, as even the corpses had been scavenged for use. There was nothing to see aside from the red-black stain across the land. But even as the northern cultivators withdrew, the 10 monks in the sky did not move an inch. All wore frozen expressions. It was not just the 10, the monks who arrived afterward were also stuck in place, unable to move. Yuanli's joy froze on his face as he looked toward the horizon. A layer of color slowly emerged, dazzling and radiant, suspended on the farthest edge of the sky like a giant eye that gazed coldly at them. The Maha is watching with his own eyes. Yuanli had a scholarly background, and thus recognized it at a glance. He quickly ducked his head, panic rising within, and instantly understood why none of the monks fled. He muttered to himself, "It's not that they can't flee, they dare not. In the 7 Dharma forms of Buddhist Tao, one stage higher could crush someone outright." The fate and very lives of these monks were in the Maha's hands now. How could they possibly escape? A suffocating pressure lingered for a moment. Those on the southern bank also began to sense something amiss when they saw the colorful light in the sky mirrored on the ground. Something in the great void had responded to a call and was emitting a faint glimmer. The light pierced through the air, turning into a deep purple-black hue. It rapidly expanded in the sky, revealing a purple alms bowl ringed by 2 black bands. No incantations adorned it, but its gaping mouth was dark and terrifying. The true form of the Jang demon bowl, the Buddhist artifact, gradually took form. The eldest monk among them pressed his palms together and murmured softly, "This demon of great evil has come this far, yet is returned to our junior brother. Everyone, the mundane world is void. It is time for us to suppress the demon with our bodies and return to the Buddhist soil." His expression remained calm and his tone steady. He was clearly a cultivator of great attainment. Yet among the remaining 9, 6 looked down, faint traces of fear and anxiety in their eyes. Still, despite fearing that they would see themselves blasted into dust in the next moment, not one of them hesitated. They formed hand seals together, abandoning any thought of escape. The Maha made no move and merely watched, yet the monks had already lost their right to flee. Even those nearby who weren't of the same Tao lineage stood paralyzed, their freedom gone. These 10 did not evade. Xuanfeng's true form activated, as his Dharma body radiated colored light. Their Dharma artifacts surged forth together, soaring toward the white-armored man in the sky. "Senior brother, since there's no chance of escape, at the very least, let this opportunity fall into our own hands." Several whispers echoed in the ear of the leading monk. His smooth face darkened slightly. He had clearly understood his junior brother's intention. Xuanfeng's karmic burden had only grown ever more dreadful as he repelled the northern forces. His karmic entanglement would only deepen with every one of the 12 he slew. Even if only 1 or 2 survived out of 10, as long as Xuanfeng was killed, infinite karmic rewards would follow. With fewer people to share them, they might immediately attain the title of the Merciful One and have a boundless future. The 10 understood there was no retreat. Filled with a desperate resolve, they charged together, gritting their teeth as they rapidly closed the distance. Every cultivator knew Xuanfeng was no slouch in close combat, but no matter how strong he was up close, how could it compare to the bow in his hand? If they kept engaging from afar with spell arts, their only fate was to be picked off one by one. Biting down under the mounting pressure, they advanced and shouted coldly in unison, "Fiend, meet your end." Chapter 877, Clash Between Evils II. Buzz. Xuanfeng's gaze swept across the heavens. Though he hadn't read as many ancient texts as Yuanli, he had personally seen a Maha. He drew his white bow back into a full moon once more. Thump. The Jang demon bowl had yet to fully manifest when petals began raining down again. The remaining 9 Buddhist cultivators didn't even look back. They had already rushed in, their male and female features suddenly clear. Golden powder fell from their faces, their teeth glinted gold, and they furrowed their brows in rage. The monk charging at him was fierce, with bulging eyes and pronounced brow bones. Muscles swelled across the face, radiating killing intent. It was a true visage of a wrathful Vajra. Xuanfeng's gaze was icy sharp and as piercing as steel. He sensed the arrogance and fear hidden beneath and spoke in a hoarse voice, fierce in appearance, weak within. He simply opened his hand, and pale white energy gathered in his palm. He threw a fist forward, and 3 shades of chilling white energy morphed into tigers and leopards that slammed straight into the target. Boom! The monk's head exploded with a loud bang. Countless sparkles flew up to try and reform, but were instantly dissolved by the golden aura in midair. The headless body stumbled back in defeat. The man's eyes were cold as metal, and his other hand swung fiercely. Clang! He grabbed the neck of the monk beside him. The monk, covered in gold powder, frantically reached up with 6 hands to pull at his arm, like a panicked octopus. Xuanfeng's voice was chilling as he said, always putting on a fierce face to scare the common folk. His broad hand clenched. The monk's neck shattered with a crack, and 3 shades of pale golden energy shot into the sky, kicking the head far into the distance like a ball. Monster. But the monk's spell arts had arrived. Countless golden chains swirled down from the sky, interlinking and locking around him, striking bright sparks against his pale white armor. Clang. The Jang demon bowl manifested above him like a colossal mountain. Buddhist cultivators appeared in the distance as they rushed over from afar. The spirit wind that had allowed cultivators to remain airborne dissipated, and they all began descending to the ground. Only Xuanfeng remained in the sky, supported by the Huey River map. The Jang demon bowl now looked completely different from before, having grown to the size of a mountain. It was no longer meant to block his arrows, it was meant to stop him from escaping. Clang. Golden currents flowed in layers beneath the Jang demon bowl. Spears, halberds, axes, and cudgels fell from the sky and struck Xuanfeng's chest with a ringing clang. He stood unmoved as he slowly raised his head. His gaze sparked a surge of astral chi. Each of the 4 attackers had intricate, eye-blinking patterns on their chests, silk sashes at their waists, and were dressed in resplendent robes gleaming with golden lacquer. Xuanfeng caught their weapons with one hand, while the other swept across them with his white bow, unleashing a dazzling wave of sword-like radiance. Clang. The metallic ring of the radiance clashing against the Dharma artifacts echoed across the battlefield. Several Buddhist cultivators' expressions changed simultaneously, only to see the man enveloped in pale white aura reaching out to grab one monk's arm. Build great beams and pillars, burn wood for fuel, seize golden gauze to adorn your body. He yanked the monk's muscular arm off and crushed it to dust as he stepped forward. He drew his bow back in one smooth motion, 3 streams of white light forming with a thrum. 3 monks casting spells from afar instantly coughed up golden blood as their heads, chests, and abdomens exploded simultaneously. Xuanfeng broke free from the golden restraints on his body and blocked the incoming palms of 2 charging monks with both hands. How dare you? Several more monks flew in from both sides, their faces rigid and bitter. Their mouths moved involuntarily, voices righteous and solemn as they shouted, "Fiend, you've slain countless lives, lackey of the demonic Tao. Even if we perish into the Dharma realm, we will still suppress you, monster." Xuanfeng firmly suppressed the 2 monks' Dharma bodies. As their bodies began to crack from the pressure, the image of the battlefield before him was replaced by the ruined remains of Huey Temple on Mount Bianyan. His voice was icy as he said, "A world cleansed that remains impure, emptiness that is not empty, compassion that is not kind. Temples stretch for kilometers, yet still you cry of demons. Golden bodies 30 meters tall, boasting doctrines steeped in worldly pride." His words rang like thunder, drawing the attention of both the north and south. Many master monks and Buddhist cultivators looked away. The Jang demon bowl in the heavens trembled as if enraged and released a deafening clamor. The sound echoed beneath their feet, sweeping across the north and south and delving deep into the demonic mist. Xuanli was also shaken by the Jang demon bowl and had no choice but to descend to the riverbank. Things had once again gone beyond his expectations. He looked up and his expression darkened. Maha cannot act directly. This Dharma artifact can only be summoned by the master monks and thus it can exert pressure, nothing more. Clang. The distant monks all looked up, their faces pale as if they'd seen a ghost. They exchanged glances, then simultaneously turned and fled in the opposite direction. Something terrible has happened. If we keep flying that way, we'll surely become one of Maha's blades. Ha 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 ha! White light blazed beneath the Jang demon bowl light. The white armor on Xuanfeng's body had cracked, and the markings on his face had fractured, but this only made him appear more real. He was no longer like some celestial general, but like Xuanfeng himself. The white bow in his hand had been suppressed by the bowl in the sky, as it struggled dimly. Before him stood the remaining Buddhist cultivators, some missing arms, others without heads, all in tatters. Only 8 were left, their radiance flickering, standing silently like shattered statues after a temple collapse, but they now had a more fearsome air. They exchanged glances and their voices grew hushed. He's not invincible all the time. Despite those words, the Buddhist cultivators remained frozen in place, staring at the man who stood with one foot on a broken Dharma body. Of the original 9 master monks of the Way of Emptiness and the 6 who joined later, only 8 of them remained alive. The strength of the 12 monks of the Way of Emptiness had varied. The disparity had not been all that apparent when forming the grand formation, but the fierce battle that followed had been a thresher. Only the 5 strongest survived. What a fiend, what a demonic presence. A broken golden spear remained lodged in the fiend's chest, flickering between the cracks in his white armor. Its shaft trembled faintly with each breath he took. His sharp eyes and brows landed on them, and he exhaled softly. The broken Dharma body beneath Li Xuanfeng's foot continued to float there, its head dangling loosely. Li Xuanfeng raised a long brow as he took in the 8 monks whose gazes had grown feverish and greedy. Kill him, kill him, kill him, and the position of the merciful one will be ours. Li Xuanfeng calmly held their gaze as he crushed the half-broken Dharma body beneath his foot. His hands shot out and grabbed 2 heads, replete with compassionate expressions. He raised them high and upon seeing the fear lingering in their eyes, laughed from deep in his throat. I am no saint either, but this is perfect. 2 evils killing each other, and everything ends cleanly. Chapter 878, All Tinted Rose I. The massive black-purple bowl continued to loom in the sky, its hollow, circular center glowing with a radiance like intertwined branches and leaves that blanketed the heavens. Pale golden, curling clouds spread outward and settled motionless above. Now that the true form of the Kangxijang demon bowl had been revealed, not a single person across Jiangnan or Jiangbei could rise on wind. All were forced to the riverbanks. Even Li Qinghang, riding celestial thunder and bolstered by a feathered robe, could only hover 40 meters above the ground. She looked upward as the rumbling from the sky slowly descended. All the cultivators around her were wounded, but she clutched her spear tightly and turned toward Si Yuanli. She asked quietly, "Senior, do you have a treasure that can ascend?" Si Yuanli was intently examining the Kangxijang demon bowl, bitterness filling his heart. Just as Si Boxiu had granted the Huey River map, the monks above summoning Maha's bowl technically didn't count as direct intervention. But the Maha's control over master monks was unlike that of the Purple Mansion realm cultivators. When the stubborn master monks claimed they were slaying a demon, who could really argue? The Kangxijang demon bowl is nurtured by a Maha. Now that it's revealed, who could possibly ascend? Si Yuanli murmured, he's dead set on using these master monks to exchange for a competent merciful one. If they can't share in the treasures of Anhui heaven later, this alone is still a worthwhile reward. Although Li Qinghang didn't fully understand the intricacies of Buddhist cultivation, she had heard that many Mahas were deeply moved and personally intervened when Tang Shedu rebelled. At this moment, Li Xuanfeng's appeal was likely even greater. Just as Si Yuanli finished speaking, the sky-darkening Kangxijang demon bowl began to shift again. The 2 black rings on the bowl began to gradually glow golden, and a distant, ethereal decree echoed. Compassionate karmic fire, burn the wicked and punish the evil. The voice drifted down and lasted only a moment before everyone instinctively covered their ears. The black-purple hue in the sky turned deep crimson, and the multicolored clouds transformed into a fiery blaze. The entire sky now seemed to burn with erratically flickering flames. A thunderous roar followed. The karmic fire is here, the fiend is doomed. As the voice rang out, Si Yuanli's heart jolted, and he silently began to pray, please, let nothing go wrong. Inside the demon bowl, boom, Li Xuanfeng stood within the blazing deep crimson flames ignited inside the Kangxijang demon bowl. The flames clung to him like a shadow, climbing along his armor, their tongues licking and crackling with metallic clangs. The 8 monks saw the flames, exchanged glances, and burst into laughter, shouting in relief, the karmic fire has come, the fiend is doomed. Li Xuanfeng's spiritual sense roiled within the fire but was soon forced back into his body. He could feel a searing heat around him, causing the mana in his body to hiss and crackle. He glanced down and sneered, karmic fire. It's nothing but a fusion of the true flame, merging fire and molten fire. But the combination of all 3 fires had weakened the golden chi protecting him. The once indestructible white armor began to groan and crack under the strain, creaking loudly from the burning. The 8 monks thrived in the fire, surging forward like fish in water. Even as he spoke, Li Xuanfeng had already drawn the golden spear from his chest. The white bowstring twanged, releasing 5 white arrows. Now not only was the Kangxijang demon bowl suppressing him, but the blazing triple flames were also burning fiercely. The flash of white light had far less might than before. Bang. The astral chi on Li Xuanfeng's white bow weakened in the flames. The 5 arrows managed to block only 5 monks. The remaining 3 rushed forward, forming hand seals. The Ikaria taught me to invoke the Suxikang method, the Shijiali art. Ding-dang. 3 intricately patterned golden chains flew from their hands, links interlocking as they coiled around Li Xuanfeng's body. Sparks flew as they climbed up his arms, only for Xuanfeng, who had been waiting, to condense golden chi into giant hands, seize the chains, and yank fiercely. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of the chains striking the white armor thundered like rolling drums. The three monks were stunned as a tremendous force surged along the chains. Sparks exploded as they were pulled straight toward the white-armored figure. Their spiritual senses flared. They saw the other 5 monks already closing in behind Xuanfeng, 5 Dharma artifacts aimed at his back. Suddenly, realization dawned in their hearts. His spiritual sense must be scorched by the karmic fire. He can't sense the situation clearly anymore. Joy overtook fear in their hearts. They lunged forward deeper into the embrace of that pale, rune-marked face and shouted, "Die, monster." Boom! Xuanfeng's eyes had turned entirely pale white. He unleashed a massive blow that shattered their Dharma bodies. The 3 monks below him suddenly erupted with golden radiance. Unfazed, his fist moved like a blur of light, smashing down upon the 3 below. Shards of glass-like limbs flew into the air as 3 anguished screams rang out. Xuanfeng, you're seeking death. But golden chi struck the massive Dharma body without restraint. The 3 monks were already injured with missing heads or limbs, but 3 cries of regret and fury rang out as Xuanfeng yanked them toward him. You, how utterly foolish. None of the 3 had expected such ferocity. They were annihilated in an explosion of shattered shards of colored glass and drifting petals. Xuanfeng let out a muffled groan. Crack! 5 Dharma artifacts pierced through his body, dragging golden chi in their wake. He swept his white bow around in retaliation, but his movement had grown sluggish and heavy. The 5 monks leapt back nimbly, each retreating and laughing in unison. Excellent! Clatter! Pale golden chi flowed like blood, trailing down his armor's etched lines. It turned into a white mist in midair and dissolved into the flames. Xuanfeng slowly straightened. 2 spears had pierced through his body, with one entering at the left rib and exiting the back, the other transfixing his chest and abdomen. Both bore ornate golden patterns, releasing radiant light that seeped into him. His left leg bore web-like fractures from a monk's warhammer. 2 massive wounds had opened in his abdomen, revealing karmic fire dancing and burning in a hollow inside his white armor. Ha 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 ha. The 5 monks retreated together, wary of a dying counterattack, yet they all breathed a sigh of relief. Rather than feeling triumph, it was more like a weight had lifted from their shoulders. Xuanfeng had judged correctly. The karmic fire in the Jang demon bowl was indeed a fusion of 3 fires, but each fire was of the purple mansion realm. The 5 had known from the moment they saw it that his death was inevitable. No matter how powerful your white armor is, it's rootless, like floating duckweed. How could it withstand such flames? His vision had been obscured and body grievously wounded, but he had still insisted on dragging 3 down with him. Now all the 5 needed to do was guard against a dying blow and wear him down bit by bit till he died. Pleased with their advantage, the 5 monks each began plotting. They slowly and subtly widened the distance between each other. The glow around their bodies was not only watching Xuanfeng, but also wary of one another. If I can bring down a few more, wouldn't I earn a greater share of fate? Chapter 879, All Tinted Rose II. As the glow behind their heads grew stronger, their eyes began to shift. Their peripheral vision tracked each other's movements. Meanwhile, Xuanfeng stood motionless, raising his white bow. His entire body was shattered, hollowed out by karmic flames burning within. His aura weakened bit by bit, yet he still stood firm, the string of his bow quietly humming. What is he doing? The 5 were momentarily stunned as he drew his bowstring back to a full moon. Some chuckled, and one monk wielding a hammer even laughed aloud. Bathed in karmic fire, what could you possibly shoot? Despite the mocking words, all 5 tightened their mana surged within them, ready to intercept at any time. It wasn't carelessness. They simply didn't want to be the first to make a move and risk falling to a teammate's betrayal. And so, all 5 froze in mutual hesitation. Xuanfeng raised his bow and aimed it straight at the hammer-wielding monk. The latter's expression darkened, while the other 4 immediately smiled and activated their Dharma artifacts, rising higher into the air. Buzz! A thunderous roar rang out as the white glow vanished from Xuanfeng's bowstring. The other 4 simultaneously hurled their Dharma artifacts at the hammer-wielding monk, whose face changed drastically as he cried out in horror, "You fools, how could you be so careless?" Buzz. The white light shimmered in Xuanfeng's hand, but the white arrow materialized in front of another man, whose face bore a wrathful Vajra expression. Sword in hand, startled and furious, his voice thundered, "You dare, sowing discord. Good." The hammer-wielding monk's expression darkened, while the other 3 rejoiced. For the first time, they felt admiration for the white-armored man before them, pity. How many arrows can he still fire? No matter his schemes, death awaits. Xuanfeng was clearly engulfed in karmic fire. There was no faking that. His mystical arrows had grown weak and feeble. The three relaxed, sneering internally, tricks of an insect. All he's doing is helping us claim more glory. While the five circled in midair, Xuanfeng pulled back his bow once again, and this time, a golden-red arrow shimmered on the string. The arrow was slim but blindingly bright. It was the very mystical arrow forged in Green Pine Temple's mirage mirror heaven and tempered by merging fire and binding ring. It was highly resistant to flames. The other five had long melted in karmic fire, while this one merely glowed red. Xuanfeng focused completely. Golden light burst from his white bow, gathering in his palm. Dense astral chi poured out like water, forcing the karmic flames around him back 3 feet. He no longer looked like a man at the end of his rope. On the contrary, he was even more terrifying than before. The edges of his shattered white armor burned with searing brilliance, stirring fear deep in the soul. Buzz, all five froze as the familiar dread of death returned in full force. As astral chi surged outward, they all let out sharp howls in unison, shaking the flames around them. Ah! Unbelievable shock filled each of their hearts. A single thought surfaced in all their minds: impossible. A torrent of golden light erupted like a pillar that connected heaven and earth, parting the karmic fire and converging into the golden-red arrow, which screamed with an ear-piercing shriek. This arrow was forged from all the astral chi Xuanfeng had accumulated over countless shots. Over 20 years ago, he had used it against Yu Muxian and nearly killed that genius in a single strike. Now after 20 years of late-stage Foundation establishment realm, of bloodshed and killing, every arrow held the force of years of effort. How could this accumulated force not be terrifying? When the karmic fire scorched him, he realized his white armor could no longer protect him. But his decades of combat experience, far exceeding the battles these monks had ever seen, he made a split-second calculation and unleashed this arrow. Buzz! The 5 master monks in the air were instantly engulfed by astral chi. One after another, they and their Dharma artifacts were devoured until they were completely erased in that overwhelming storm of astral chi. The brilliant golden light flooded the entire Jiang demon bowl. The mountain-sized artifact trembled, letting out a dreadful, muffled roar. The 2 closest monks didn't even have time to groan, as their bodies and souls were obliterated in an instant. Even their Dharma artifacts turned into golden dust as they were completely annihilated. The next 2 had unfortunate comrades shielding them, one blocked by the white arrow, the other by a teammate's body, yet they too were reduced to ash. Only 2 faint streams of light flickered in the karmic fire, falling earthward like meteors and veering northward toward reincarnation. The last monk managed to shift half a step before his body vaporized into nothingness. He only had half a head remaining. His eyes were filled with disbelief, and he had no jaw left to speak. The head tumbled into the karmic fire with a dull thud. He barely formed a mouth, but not a single word emerged. The Jiang demon bowl grew dim. The white-armored man now stood before him, eyes cold and resolute. HDE stomped down without hesitation. Crack, shards like colored glass scattered amid the rolling flames. The severed head still held a pleading look in its eyes, but it was crushed underfoot. The supreme golden chi shattered soul and spirit alike, ending his life. Silence finally returned within the karmic fire. Xuanfeng was surrounded by the remains of monks and scattered Dharma artifacts. The fire's tongues licked at the white armor, gradually consuming the golden chi that cloaked him. Drip, autumn dew trickled down Xuanfeng's armor, only to evaporate into nothing in midair from the fire. He slowly pulled the golden spear from his chest and dropped it before him with a clang. Crack. He crushed the glass beneath his foot, then slowly sat down. The 2 immortal foundations within him had been reduced to a thin, flickering layer. He had a faint smile beneath the pale white runes as he sat atop a mound of broken Dharma bodies like a man on his throne. His white bow was lodged in the chest of a corpse as it rested gently in his palm. Beneath his feet stretched a field of shattered limbs like stained glass. There were arms, legs, snarling faces, and Vajra-like bodies, all lying still in the karmic fire. The white bow stood beside him, glowing faintly. He slowly adjusted his breathing as he waited for the remaining monks to arrive. But perhaps the other Mahas had intervened, or perhaps the remaining master monks were not fools and had already withdrawn. The Jiang demon bowl hovered motionless in the sky, but with no monks to sustain it, it lingered for no more than 10 seconds before reluctantly fading back into the great void. Xuanfeng sat atop the mountain of monk corpses. The scenery of Jiangnan finally returned in his flame-dimmed eyes. The surging river flowed east, eddies curling through currents fast and slow. Its cold indifference remained timeless. Jagged rocks jutted up, waves rose and fell. The view was no different than before he entered the formation. Only now the river's surface was crowded with petals, drifting and scattering freely. They clustered together, flowing with the current from west to east, rushing toward the distant eastern sea. His eyes shifted slightly, turning north along the river's stretch of 50 kilometers from north to south. The ground was covered in glassy shards, all tinted rose. Truly beautiful, he muttered. Chapter 880, Annihilation. The Kongsijang demon bowl in the sky faded, and the eye-like colors at the horizon disappeared with it. The radiant lights across the heavens dimmed, gradually returning to the normal sky. All the cultivators simultaneously looked up, pupils dilating as they collectively froze. The purple-black hue and colored lights brought by the Kongsijang demon bowl had yet to completely fade. The entire sky bore a light violet tint, with flowing lights that exuded an entrancing, soul-stirring aura. But glass-like fragments of bodies, both big and small, were scattered across this violet sky. These master monks' dharma bodies were immense to begin with, and now they littered the air like countless fallen statues. All eyes traced the trail of broken corpses upward until they landed on a mountain of golden remains formed from dharma bodies. A white-armored man sat quietly cross-legged at the peak, with a white bow planted beside him. He slew the entire assembly of monks. The scene lasted only a moment. Now that the suppression of the Kongsijang demon bowl had vanished, the fragments of dharma bodies instantly vaporized into dazzling lights, and the floral rain in the sky intensified, accompanied by cascading shards of colored glass crashing down with clinks and chimes. The crowd still craned their necks, stunned. Though it was but a fleeting moment, the sight was so terrifying it branded itself into the pupils of every cultivator present. Most hadn't even moved to collect the falling glass, frozen in place. Boom! A muffled thunder rumbled. Li Qinghang rose first, transforming into a bolt of violet lightning. She pierced through the falling dewdrops and petal rain, searching for the white-armored Li Xuanfeng. He had already descended on the wind. The gaping wounds across his body and the hollow insides beneath them had been concealed, and he was suited in his domineering white-gold armor once again. His white bow was held with casual ease in his hand. Li Xuanfeng's eyes, flickering with golden energy, now appeared faintly gray. He raised a hand to silence Li Qinghang's words. She immediately swallowed her anxiousness, stood firm with her silver spear behind him, and the uncle and niece descended toward the southern bank amid the celestial phenomena. Below, everyone stared blankly at the wonders overhead, allowing the pink petals to reach their knees. When Li Xuanfeng stepped onto the radiant pass summoned by the Huey River map, even the noble Si Yuanli trembled, unable to meet his gaze. Everyone knelt in reverence from west to east. The fierce and majestic man radiated brilliance in his white armor. Families on either side bowed their heads, immortal descendants lowered their gazes, and rogue cultivators and kin alike prostrated like blades of grass. Dew and petals rained down as a thunderous chorus erupted from the southern bank. Greetings, my lord. Li Xuanfeng gave a slight nod and gently raised his left hand. A scroll slowly materialized, floating long and horizontal in midair. The white-armored man unfurled it with a soft flick of his wrist. Splash! The long radiant pass beneath his feet instantly vanished, turning into streams of golden light that flowed back into the scroll. Li Xuanfeng said nothing more. The scroll spun once in the air and landed in front of Si Yuanli. Swish! Si Yuanli stared blankly at the sky as pink blossoms spiraled down onto his face, only to be brushed aside by the Dharma light shielding him. His perception technique was among the finest. He had clearly seen the glass-like Dharma bodies scattered across the heavens the moment the Kongsijang demon bowl vanished from the sky. Coupled with the terrifying, hair-raising phenomena, only one thought remained in Si Yuanli's heart. All 18 master monks had been executed. Soft petals had risen past his knees. Si Yuanli cast his gaze northward, where endless pink and gold stretched before his eyes. Dew, petals, and glass covered the land like an ocean, dazzling him so much he could hardly keep his eyes open. Who could compare to such divine might in the last 500 years? The names of figures like Duanmu Huey and Shangyuan surfaced in Si Yuanli's mind. Perhaps only that incident 70 years ago, the pacification of Su State, when Shangyuan entered alone into a gathering of monks, slain 2 monks and 3 devils, and walked away unopposed, could be considered comparable. His gaze slowly traveled from the sky full of wonders to the cultivators along the riverbank. Some eyes held fear, some relief, and others joy. But one emotion prevailed among the family cultivators and rogue cultivators: Reverence. Si Yuanli looked away, dazed and confused. Li Xuanfeng slightly tilted his head and looked toward him, causing Si Yuanli to jolt upright and listen intently. Li Xuanfeng's slightly hoarse voice echoed through the air. It wasn't loud, but it made all the cultivators bow and listen solemnly. The northern monks have been slain. My duty as guardian is fulfilled. My lifespan and immortal foundation are all but spent. I only hope to be permitted to return to the lake and enter death. His words made all cultivators raise their heads, stirred. Even those from the Yuan family, who had clashed with him before, now looked at Li Xuanfeng with reverence. The entire assembly fell silent. Though most cultivators had come to defend the river out of necessity rather than devotion, they had also fought with all their strength. After all, their families and cave dwellings lay behind the riverbanks, and who hadn't brought their entire family. Now, nearly all could see that it was Li Xuanfeng alone who had defended the riverbank. This fearsome man was about to enter death, and the family's dread and fear gradually turned into relief. Along with reverence came gratitude. Thank goodness, truly thank goodness. Instead, it was the rogue cultivators and family members who exchanged glances filled with regret and gratitude, lifting their heads to look at him, at a loss for words. But in Si Yuanli's mind, a shudder ran through him. The ominous premonition he had been dreading was now reality. He thought in fear he is going to enter death. Li Xuanfeng dying in battle versus surviving with heavy injuries, these were two entirely different outcomes for Si Yuanli. Just moments ago, he had admired Li Xuanfeng's imposing might and felt a touch of relief. But now his heart was left only with cold dread. This changes everything. This changes everything. Li Yuanqin is a close aide to the Kai family. If he perishes in the line of duty, the Kai family will seize the chance to exploit the situation. At that point, it won't even matter whether the Li family can support us. The entire war might shift in a dangerous direction. No matter how cold his heart felt, when the words reached his lips, all he could do was respond bitterly. How could this be? Very well, Xuanfeng. Li Xuanfeng gave him a slow nod, his voice slightly lowered. The monarch calling command Golden Talisman cannot be retrieved now. Once I enter death, my family will surely deliver it. His gaze had softened slightly. Though the man hailed from Azure Pond sect and had committed acts better left unspoken, the survival of millions behind the river was in no small part thanks to him. As a swordsman, at least he still held to some lines he would not cross. Meeting his gaze, Si Yuanli felt a flicker of guilt. Li Xuanfeng was about to die, ultimately due to obeying his orders. The man had not yet realized how much Si Yuanli had come to admire him in secret. He only felt pain. What a pity. Li Xuanfeng gave a soft laugh and transformed into a gust of bone-white wind, departing. The Li family members had no reason to remain, and all rose into the air. Everyone stood to the side and spoke in respectful unison, respectfully seeing the lord off. The voices spread from east to west, gradually merging into one. Even Lingu Laning's eyes revealed a trace of reverence. She turned slightly and offered a salute in the direction of his departure, respectfully seeing the elder off. Si Yuanli felt his chest fill with icy snow, but soon realized more and more eyes were turning toward him. A woman in green robes stepped forward, her attire elegant and striking, a sword at her waist. She first offered him a bow. This is bad. Si Yuanli's scalp tingled. Lingu Laning's voice rang through his mind like a great bell, sending a jolt through his whole body. Senior Yuanli. The northern cultivators have retreated. Should we proceed to aid Bianyan? Si Yuanli turned his head and realized the entire southern bank was watching him with cold stares. The silence was so complete one could hear a pin drop. Every gaze stabbed at him like blades, like a rain of arrows piercing him through. Those eyes held curiosity mixed with pressure, pressing against his chest little by little.